I was born as a murderous evil spirit, yet millions of people bowed down and worshipped me. They even built an evil god palace in my name, and willingly offered their own bodies as sacrifices, all because I was bound to the great evil god system. Every sacrifice made me stronger. Since this was my first time being an evil spirit, the system handed me a beginner gift pack. But when I saw what was inside, I almost laughed. This is supposed to be a gift pack? How pathetic. So I followed the beginner tutorial and opened the sacrifice panel. A notification instantly flashed before me. Current beginner task. Complete 1 sacrifice. Reward. White bone summoning. Common bone materials x10. So I sacrificed every material from the beginner pack. The next second, I felt a surge of energy enveloping my spiritual body. The translucent white glow of the altar seemed to brighten. At that moment, my rank rose to the ghost shadow level. I smiled faintly, looking at the progress for the next level. I need to kill 10,000 people? With my current abilities, it shouldn't be too difficult. I swiped across the panel and immediately cast the bone summoning skill. A skeleton and a ball of green fire appeared before me. Before I could take a closer look, I noticed movement outside my eerie domain. I extended my divine sense to investigate. I saw a snake demon hunting a dozen refugees. They had been chased to the point of exhaustion, lying on the ground in utter despair. Among them, a youth named Shirtu was kneeling toward the altar, murmuring under his breath, "Great Immortal, I am willing to offer my entire soul. Please, save my mother." I ignored the child. My eyes were only on that giant snake. Perfect. The flesh and blood energy of this snake is incredibly rich. With a single thought, 2 eerie servants appeared instantly before the snake. Upon seeing the skeleton, the giant snake trembled uncontrollably, forgetting even the thought of escaping. The next second, the skeleton instantly crushed the snake's head. With a sharp crack, the snake's skull was shattered in an instant. This massive body crashed to the ground. I pulled the snake's corpse back into my eerie domain. Then, through the skeleton, I looked at the villagers. Every one of them was gaunt, pale, and lifeless. I sensed them, and found that even if their flesh energy were combined, it wouldn't even reach a tenth of the snake's. Tasteless to consume, but a waste to discard. I might as well squeeze some information out of them. With that thought, I controlled the skeleton to write a few lines on the ground. "Who are you? Where is this place?" Shida's eyes lit up as he stared at the words. Could this be the soul-collecting contract of an evil spirit? He swallowed hard. "Please accept my humble soul." I was completely bewildered. What is this nonsense? Are we chatting across different servers? But seeing their state, I suddenly understood. This must be an ancient world. Life for these refugees is probably harder than in an apocalypse. A low literacy rate makes sense. I sighed. Forget it, I'll let them go. After all, I'm not some bloodthirsty ancient demon. I had the skeleton pat Shirtu on the head, then recalled the 2 eerie servants to my domain. I decomposed the giant snake's corpse entirely, obtaining 8 units of common blood, 12 units of common flesh, and 9 units of common souls. Then, using the snake bones and essence blood, I summoned a bone snake servant. I sensed its power carefully and found that 1 common bone snake equals 3 skeletons in combat power. It seems the strength of the servants is proportional to the materials invested. Thinking of this, I reached out and opened the gacha interface to see if I could pull a golden legend. I closed my eyes and clicked. The icons on the screen flickered rapidly, finally slowing down to stop on a tombstone. Congratulations! You have obtained the Living Dead Secret Realm. The next second, the tombstone appeared instantly beside the altar. A hint was carved in the corner. Touch the dead man's tablet to enter and explore the secret realm. Just as the draw ended, a new side quest popped up. Explore the Living Dead Secret Realm. Exploration progress, 0%. Rewards depend on the exploration degree. Looking at this quest, I frowned. This realm looks dangerous at a glance. So I first sent the bone snake into the realm. As soon as it entered, the sight before me left me speechless. It was a dilapidated, modern residential complex, with various zombies wandering around. After observing carefully, I summarized 1 piece of good news and 1 piece of bad news. The bad news: zombies will frantically bite any living thing. The good news: the bone snake is not a living thing. Suddenly, an idea flashed through my mind. Could I convert these zombies into raw materials? I decided to try it right away. I commanded the bone snake to twist a zombie's head off and drag it out of the secret realm. Then, the ghost fire stepped forward to dismantle the corpse piece by piece. Just then, a system notification appeared. Obtained common flesh x 0.9, common blood x 0.1, common bone material x 0.9. This discovery made my eyes light up. It actually works. Doesn't that make this secret realm my infinite resource mine? My motivation was now at its peak. I immediately sent all 3 ghost servants into the realm to grind for materials. Meanwhile, outside the eerie domain, the refugees stood frozen, afraid to even breathe. Widow Li clung to her son, Shirtu, weeping bitterly. Shirtu touched his own head, suddenly realizing he now belonged to the evil lord.
Shito kumfurta widuli.
Then told the other refugees what had happened. Uncles, I have already offered my soul to the evil lord. Not only did he not harm me, he actually saved us. In an instant, everyone began talking all at once. They were still terrified of the malevolent entity, so Shirtu interrupted their discussion. I know everyone is afraid of the evil lord, but I cannot be ungrateful. If it weren't for the evil lord, we would all be food for the snake demons by now. Since he took my soul, I should accept him as my master. As he spoke, he placed his amulet on the altar. I have nothing precious to offer, so I give this amulet to the evil lord. Then he knelt before the altar. Zhang Dazhu among the crowd also understood. Immortals can protect mortals, and the evil lord has protected us too. Then there's no difference between the evil lord and an immortal. There are officials in hell who are also immortals. They govern the dead after they pass. A burly man slapped his thigh hard. Maybe the one in the forest of the dead is actually an immortal from the underworld. Hearing this, the others were convinced. They simultaneously placed their belongings on the altar, then, following Shita's lead, they knelt. After one night, I had gathered over 200 sets of materials. The results were quite impressive. I used bone summoning again, creating 6 skeletons and 1 ghost fire, and sent them all into the secret realm to work, leaving only 1 skeleton and 1 ghost fire behind. Then, I opened the beginner tutorial interface. After accepting the second beginner task, I commanded 2 ghost servants to leave the eerie domain, preparing to gather some common wood. To complete the second tutorial, just as I left the domain, I saw a pile of junk placed on the altar. The refugees from last night were still there, seeming to be gathered around, boiling something in a stone pot they found from somewhere. Someone immediately spotted the skeletal servant. The Lord has manifested. Quickly, kneel and welcome the Lord. Immediately, the crowd knelt before the skeletal servant, kowtowing while chanting repeatedly, "Thank you, Lord, for pitying us lowly peasants. Thank you for your protection." Seeing this, I was completely stunned. What on earth are you guys doing? But as they knelt on the ground, with nothing blocking my view, I finally saw what the refugees were cooking. In the murky water floated a few yellowed leaves, with a few beetles sunk at the bottom, emitting a fishy and astringent smell. I felt a bit nauseous. Then, my feelings became complicated. At their hungriest moment, they offered their best food to an evil lord. How should I put it? Felt a bit surreal. Just as I was reflecting, the system suddenly interrupted me. Congratulations! You have gained 12 followers. Cultivating believers and stockpiling food is a necessary path for every great evil god. You have taken another giant step toward becoming an evil god. I raised an eyebrow. Since they follow me, it's only fair they work for me like beasts of burden, right? The skeletons and bone snakes are mostly clearing the dungeon. I'm currently desperate for people to chop wood and harvest heads. Having made up my mind, I began scrolling through the shop list. Only 5 items were unlocked so far. Stonemason, Village Jade Worker, Wood King Pack. I exchanged for 12 blood-attracting pills and 12 flesh pills, giving 1 to each refugee. But the refugees looked at those foul-smelling pills and didn't dare to swallow them. Only Shirtu, without hesitation, popped 2 pills into his mouth. Seeing this, Li Daju grabbed the 2 pills in front of him and stuffed them in. Damn it! Still better than eating leaves and bugs. I was almost fainting from hunger just now, but after swallowing this pill, my stomach actually feels warm. Even my legs aren't shaking anymore. Before he could finish speaking, Li Daju's straw-like hair grew continuously. His gaunt body began to swell. He clenched his fists in disbelief, feeling power surging through his muscles.
Lidatsu shouted in excitement.
Divine grace. It must be divine grace. This is an immortal pill. As soon as he spoke, the others hesitated no longer, scrambling to stuff the pills into their mouths. In an instant, coughs and gasps echoed around the stone pot. The refugees' sagging skin began to tighten. Their sunken cheeks regained their color. But just then, above Shitu's head, there appeared a shimmering golden phantom of a ghost blade. As the ghost blade swung, the faint sounds of clashing steel and battle cries echoed. I was completely bewildered by the sight. Wait, what's up with this kid? He can actually trigger a heavenly phenomenon? Could it be that you're the protagonist of this novel? After a long while, the phantom blade above the boy slowly faded. Shirtu instinctively clenched his fists. His bones popped and cracked loudly. The boy, once as thin as a hemp stalk, now had muscles and veins bulging, looking like an absolute unit. I did a quick scan, and found the villagers' flesh energy had surged. Now, most of them reached 2 units. The kid was even more ridiculous. He alone possessed the energy of 6 units. I silently took note of the boy. Then I had the ghost fire distribute tools to everyone. Once distributed, I had the skeleton punch a tree a few times. A moment later, the tree crashed down. The ghost fire efficiently stepped forward to carve the wood, breaking it down into common lumber. Only then did the villagers snap out of it. Shirtu stepped forward. My lord, Do you need us to chop trees? I immediately had the skeleton give him a thumbs up. The kid's intuition is actually quite good. He knows what needs to be done. A prime candidate for a beast of burden. The skeleton's approval gave Shirtu immense encouragement. He picked up the axe from the ground and headed straight for another tree. Seeing this, Li Daju quickly shouldered his axe. My lord, leave it all to me. I used to be the village woodcutter. I'm a professional at this. The dark-faced man beside him chimed in. Me too. With the two leading the way, the remaining villagers grabbed their tools and rushed toward the trees. I was very satisfied with the sight. Very good. Full of spirit. Suddenly, I have so many top-tier beasts of burden. The materials for the pills weren't wasted at all. Then I had the skeleton fell 5 trees and 5 boulders, planning to return to the ghost realm to bring out the common iron or I'd collected, just in time to unlock the water well and complete the next novice tutorial task. While I was returning to the ghost realm, several metallic whistling sounds suddenly pierced the air, followed by a series of sharp cracks. Shirtu swung his axe horizontally across a trunk. A sharp blade aura instantly felled a grove of giant trees. Shirtu dropped the axe and stared at his palm, too shocked to speak. Is this my power? Ever since I took the pill, a strange power has been surging through my body, and several cultivation methods and combat skills automatically appeared in my mind. Zhao Laoshuan, the eldest and most experienced, saw exactly what was happening. Drawing qi into the body, projecting spiritual energy outward. Shirtu, you've entered the Xiantian realm. You've become a cultivator. The villagers were equally shocked. A cultivator? Doesn't that mean Shirtu is now like the Immortals of White Jade City? Shidu's heart trembled with excitement. This must be the power granted by my lord. He fell to his knees where the skeleton had vanished. Shirtu thanks my lord for the divine power. I shall follow my lord for all eternity. The others followed, kneeling respectfully once more. I, Li Daju, will be my lord's beast of burden for life. Me too. Just then, I emerged from the ghost realm with the iron ore, only to find this crowd kowtowing to me again. I was completely speechless. What is going on? Can't they even chop trees in peace? I look away for 1 second, and they're kneeling again. I was speechless. Just as I was about to whip my beasts of burden into shape, I spotted something. Among the pile of common lumber, a piece of wood glowing with green light was hidden there. As I looked closer, the system panel appeared. Emerald Tree Jade Marrow, Grade 5 Heavenly Treasure. Once consumed, it nourishes wood attribute spiritual roots below grade 5. It can also be used to unlock buildings like spiritual fields and herb gardens. I controlled the skeleton to pick up this piece of emerald wood. Holy crap. A grade 5 heaven and earth treasure, and I'm just a newbie evil spirit, and I suddenly stumble upon a grade 5 treasure. Is this overwhelming fortune for real? Feels like a dream. I instinctively scanned the surroundings. A place abundant in wood element energy. Does that mean the forest of the dead? I looked confused, but this spot is just the edge of the forest of the dead. The wild grass is pitifully sparse, and you're telling me this is a place abundant in wood element energy? I feel like my intelligence is being insulted. Since the environment isn't the issue, then the answer must lie with these villagers. Thinking this, I switched my perspective to the self-bone ghost servant, scanning each of the villagers one by one. I want to see which honest-looking fellow gave me such a massive surprise. After some questioning, Li Daju nervously told me the origin of this piece of wood. The more I heard, the more stunned I became. Cutting down a tree and finding a grade 5 treasure. What a talent. After taking the Emerald Jade Marrow, I thought for a moment. For those with talent or outstanding contributions, they must be heavily rewarded. These are high-quality pals who will produce for me in the future. They need to be carefully cultivated. So, I exchanged for 2 blood-attracting pills and 2 flesh and blood pills. I delivered them to Shirtu and Li Daju. The 2 of them swallowed the pills without hesitation. Then, Shidu's flesh and blood energy rose to just over 8 units. Li Daju barely reached 2 units. This immediately sparked envy among the other villagers. Determination flared in their eyes, thinking they must work harder for the Lord. Over the next 7 days, my land reclamation project proceeded in full swing. The materials in the warehouse had already surpassed 4 digits. In a few days, I finished building the water well, completing the second task of the novice tutorial. I obtained 2 heaven-mending stones. My eyes lit up as I read the description of the heaven-mending stone. Good stuff. This is a wild card. Can substitute for any material below grade 8. Then, I shifted my gaze to the thick earth spiritual field. With this, most crops could be harvested daily after accelerated growth, solving the food problem instantly. It can also grow other spiritual plants and medicines. I figured it was a steal. Once decided, I clicked build. Then, a plot of land manifested out of thin air. Just then, Li Daju brought me another treasure. I took it and looked. It was actually a grade 3 bloodvein wood. This made me take him seriously. Even if the bloodvein wood is lower grade than the Emerald Jade Marrow, proves this kid is truly lucky. With a wave of my hand, I rewarded him with 1 blood-attracting pill and 1 flesh and blood pill. Li Daju was so happy his grin nearly split his face. After showing off to the other villagers, he happily swallowed them. At that moment, the task panel flashed again. Side quest triggered. Demons are coveting your stockpiled livestock. Please proceed to Sherdeng village to manifest the evil god's majesty and punish the meat thieves.
Quest requirement.
Slay the demons. Quest rewards will be determined by the completion status. I didn't expect another side quest so soon. As for demons, I don't know much about them, so caution is paramount. With a thought, countless materials flew out of the warehouse, all merging into the self-bone altar. The giant skull atop the altar shuddered violently. A blood-red sinister light flashed in its sockets. The chilling aura surrounding it surged instantly. Simultaneously, I felt my power rising rapidly. The range of my ghost domain expanded tenfold in an instant. My abilities were also enhanced. I can now induce hallucinations in creatures caught in the ghost domain. The authority to control Chong-ghosts was unlocked, plus 10 additional ghost servant slots, and 1 ghost servant slot. The bone material limit for self-bone summoning increased to 500 units. The more bone materials consumed, the stronger the ghost servant becomes. This means I can summon even more powerful servants. I slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. After stabilizing the surging energy within me, I focused my attention on the side quest. I rubbed my head, wondering how to complete the task. Then, a spark of inspiration hit me. I'm the boss now. Of course I'll let the employees do the work. Shido's talent is exceptionally high. I just need to give him more weapons, right? With that in mind, I immediately bought bone swords and bone armor from the mall. Then, I used the bloodvein wood to make a wooden tablet. I sealed the self-bone summoning spell inside it. I set the summoning materials to the maximum, just in case Shirtu couldn't handle the demon. Meanwhile, at the edge of the forest of the dead, Shirtu was swinging his sword chi, hacking at the wood. Just then, the light around him suddenly dimmed, the chatter of the villagers, and the clanging of tools gradually faded away. Before long, a shimmering white figure slowly emerged before Shirtu. With one glance, he was absolutely certain. This was a great deity. Without a moment's hesitation, he dropped to his knees, his forehead striking the void with a heavy thud. "Greetings, great deity." I carefully chose my words, to make my image seem more majestic. "Demons and monsters plague this world. Evil spirits ravage the 9 provinces. I know Sherdeng village shall face a demonic calamity, yet I pity the suffering of the common folk. Wilt thou act on my behalf to purge the evil?" Hearing this, Shidu's gaze turned resolute. "I would gladly die 10,000 deaths for this cause." As soon as he spoke, the darkness around them receded like a tide. Sunlight poured down once more, and the voices of the villagers became clear again. Shirtu remained kneeling, but a few items now lay by his side. He carefully tucked them into his robe, then swallowed both medicinal pills. A familiar warm current instantly surged through his body, and his strength increased further. Then, he passed my words to his other followers. Everyone was terrified upon hearing the news. Widow Li hugged Shirtu, tears welling in her eyes. "My son, once you go, slay those demons well. Do not bring shame to the great deity. And if you dare return missing a single hair, I'll skin you alive." Shirtu's eyes grew hot, and he nodded vigorously. "Mother, I understand." Li Daju stepped forward from the crowd. "Shirtu, I'm strong. I'll go with you. I can lend you a hand along the way." A dark-faced man followed behind him. "Me too." Thus, the 3 of them carried their weapons and rushed toward Sherdeng village. Meanwhile, in Sherdeng village, Li Daju and the others soon arrived. The villagers recognized them as being from the neighboring Daliang village, and welcomed them into the village. On the way, Shirtu shared my words with the villagers, but they didn't believe him at all. After all, Sherdeng village was under the protection of Bai Yu city, and the immortals in that city were all incredibly powerful. Therefore, they believed that no demons could possibly appear here. However, on the 3rd day after the 3 arrived, 2 young men came scrambling and crawling to Lu Er's door. "Uncle Lu, something terrible has happened. The Wu family's child was snatched away by a snake demon, right under the old locust tree at the east end of the village." Upon hearing this, Lu Er was so terrified he wet his pants. He hurriedly called the villagers for help. In an instant, the villagers, learning of the incident, fell into a panic. They clutched hoes and kitchen knives, yet no one dared to run toward the east end. In the midst of the chaos, Shirtu and his 2 companions, fully armed, rushed to the locust tree. At that moment, under the old locust tree, a black snake as thick as a bucket was coiled around the trunk. Its tongue flickered with a hiss. The Wu child was constricted by its body, suspended in mid-air, his small face turning purple from suffocation. On the verge of drawing his last breath, the giant snake gleefully swallowed the child. Humans really do taste better when they're young. Boss brought over a dozen snake demons this time. With so few people in one village, how will there be enough to go around? Shirtu, who had just arrived, let out a thunderous roar. Vile creature! Then he shot forward like an arrow. The black snake whipped its head around, its vertical pupils filled with murderous intent. Another snack delivering itself to my door. This brat looks sturdy. His meat will surely be chewier. With that, the black snake lunged rapidly at Shertu. The villagers gasped in horror. The lead man gripped the hem of his clothes tight, his heart leaping into his throat. But in the next second, everyone froze. Shertu did not retreat. Instead, he charged forward. The bone sword in his hand swept out with a piercing sword chi. The black snake's head instantly rolled across the ground. Witnessing this, the entirety of Sherdeng village fell dead silent. After a long while, a villager spoke up with a trembling voice. That was a snake demon thicker than a bucket. Shertu actually killed it with a single strike. That sword light was just like the demon slaying of the cultivators the lords in the city speak of. Could he actually be an immortal master? Soon, exclamations of awe erupted one after another. The villagers' gaze toward Shertu shifted from skepticism to absolute reverence. Under the great locust tree, the metallic scent of the snake demon's blood was carried far by the wind. Shertu noticed that, in the direction the scent drifted, there were faint, rustling sounds, drawing closer to Sherdeng village. Seeing this, the villagers' nerves, which had just relaxed, snapped taut once more. Someone looks up toward the woods. Their face turns deathly pale. What is that? The vegetation in the forest shakes violently. Countless snakes instantly surround the entire village. And at the front of the swarm, a giant snake, far thicker than the previous one, slowly glides out. Its eyes are locked onto Shertu in the village, a mere first-stage early cultivator. And you dare touch the subordinate of Nya 41? I have dominated Huguang Ridge for all these years. You are the first to try this. Shertu grips his bone sword tightly. Cold sweat instantly breaks out on his back. The aura of this giant snake is far stronger than the last. He can clearly feel it. The blood-flesh energy of the snake demon is at least 10 times his own. The snake demon sniffs Shitu's scent. Such rich blood-flesh energy. Perfect for me to swallow, to get my revenge and nourish my body at once. As soon as it finishes speaking, it violently lashes its tail. With a thunderous crash, it smashes into the village's earthen wall. Half of the wall collapses instantly. Shertu grits his teeth, holding the bone sword across his chest. He does not retreat a single step. I am protected by a god. You dare touch me? Nya 41 bursts into laughter, his voice dripping with disdain. What gods exist in this world? Nothing more than low-life monsters and ghosts. If I say you're dead, then you're dead. Not even a god could save you. With that, it opens its bloody maw wide. A foul, stinking gale sweeps toward Shertu. Simultaneously, dozens of black snakes pounce on the villagers. Just as Shertu is about to be swallowed by the giant snake, a sudden warmth spreads from his chest. The blood-patterned wooden plaque suddenly flies out from his clothes, hovering in mid-air, emitting a faint white glow. In an instant, a chilling wind rises. Black death energy, like ink dropped in water, overflows from the plaque, winding and spreading across the ground. Seeing this sight,
Nie 41 instinctively feels a fatal danger.
Yet he still forces himself to remain arrogant. What rat is playing tricks here? Grandfather will swallow you whole right now. The snake demon opens its maw to the limit. The gale in its mouth rushes toward Shertu. But the moment it nears the glow of the plaque, the gale is violently dispersed by the death energy. Simultaneously, as the death energy hits the ground, a white skeleton gradually emerges from the shimmering light. The next second, all movement in Sherdeng village seems to hit a pause button. The snake demon's roar stops. The villagers scream stop. At this moment, Nya 41 screams internally. An abomination. My father once said, abominations are the most unique existences in the world, far beyond the capacity of ordinary creatures to resist. They can infect, assimilate, and even enslave all living beings. If you are unfortunate enough to encounter one, the only way to survive is to run. The former Nya 41 didn't take it to heart. Until this very moment, he understands. Children should listen to their fathers. Nya 41's arrogance has completely vanished. He coils himself into a ball, trembling violently. On the other side, Li Daju and the black-faced man watch the skeleton appear from afar, their faces filled with joy and excitement. The two prostrate themselves on the ground, shouting, "Greetings, great god!" The villagers of Sherdeng village are utterly shocked. Is this the god they were talking about? Just by standing there, it has intimidated dozens of demons. The majesty of a god is truly this terrifying. Most villagers quickly follow suit and kneel. Whatever Li Daju chants, they chant along with him. Among the crowd, a little girl watches with burning eyes. She sees that behind the skeleton, a blurred, towering figure faintly emerges. Hong Ling murmurs to herself, "Is that the god? If I have the chance, I must visit the forest of the dead." Meanwhile, I control the skeleton to quickly scan the surroundings. Soon understanding the current situation, it seems the kid did a decent job, killing a snake demon on his own. This kid can be specially cultivated in the future. His talent and mindset are both good. A prime candidate for labor. I pat Shitu's head in encouragement. Nya 41 sees that I'm not paying any attention to him. He is inwardly ecstatic. It seems abominations also prefer human blood flesh. That's good news. Thinking this, he shrinks himself even tighter, hoping that while I slaughter the humans, he can make a quick escape. But Nya 41's beautiful wish did not come true. He only sees that for some reason, I did not kill the humans before me. Instead, I approach him step by step, looking down at the swarm of snake demons. So weak. Most of their blood flesh energy fluctuates in the dozens. The largest one isn't even 200, but if I collect them all, it'll be a significant amount of materials. Thinking of this, I control the skeleton to raise its arm. Seeing this, Nya 41 quickly begged for mercy. My lord, please spare my life. This humble demon is still young, unaware that this was your domain. I did not mean to offend you. Please, spare me. I am willing to serve you as a beast of burden. Yet, I remained indifferent to the snake demon's pleas, stepping closer to it one step at a time. Nya 41 grew even more panicked. My lord, my father is the Nyahai dragon of Huguang Ridge, who has reached the peak of the second rank. Please let me go, and I will lead you to Huguang Ridge. My father's flesh and blood will surely aid your cultivation, taking you to the next level. A strange look crossed my face. What a filial son. Then, with a wave of the skeleton's arm, its bony palm pierced through the snake demon's skull. Death energy instantly surged in. The terror in Nya 41's eyes slowly faded, until all life vanished completely. Without a moment's hesitation, I commanded the bony palm to sweep. The gathered death energy surged toward the remaining snake demons. In just a few breaths, the dozens of snake demons surrounding the village became corpses. The villagers of Sherdeng village watched in stunned silence. This is the power of a god, annihilating demons without the slightest effort. I glanced at the ground littered with snake demon corpses, then looked at Shitu's fanatical expression. It seems I don't need to worry about the aftermath. With these precious materials scattered everywhere, the kid should be able to bring them back for me. So, I commanded the skeleton to turn around, flying toward the floating blood-patterned wooden plaque. As soon as the skeleton reached the plaque, it transformed into a streak of black mist and merged into it. The plaque's glow gradually faded, and it floated back into Shitu's arms. Seeing this, the villagers erupted into cheers. There really is a god. He actually helped us slay the demons. We never have to fear demons again. Shirtu gripped the plaque tightly in his arms. The mission is complete. The people of Sherdeng village are safe. It's time to return to the forest of the dead and report to the god. He cupped his hands toward the villagers. Uncles, aunts, everyone, the demon plague is over, and I must return to the forest of the dead. As soon as he spoke, Hong Ling rushed forward and blocked Shitu's path. I want to go with you. The villagers were stunned. Someone quickly tugged at her sleeve. Hong Ling, are you crazy? You're supposed to go to the Bai Yu Sword Sect next year. Once you learn their skills at the sect, you'll become an immortal master. Why would you ever need to fear demons? However, Hong Ling's father interrupted them. Hong Ling is not going to the Bai Yu Sword Sect. The protection of the Bai Yu Immortal is unreliable. Only the power of the god is real. And not just her. I want to see the god as well. At that moment, another villager stepped forward. Sure too. I want to go with you too. Another villager chimed in. In an instant, most of the villagers crowded around. Sure too. Take us with you. We want to go to the forest of the dead and offer our devotion to the god. But a small few insisted on staying. Some still believed in the Bai Yu Immortal. Others couldn't bear to leave their ancestral land. After witnessing all this, Li Daju smiled and patted Shirtu on the shoulder. It seems quite a few people want to come back with us. Let's not delay any further. Let's set off early, so we don't keep the god waiting. The dark-faced man stepped forward eagerly. We must bring these snake demons along. We have plenty of people now. Everyone lend a hand. With those words, the entire Sherdeng village immediately became a hive of activity. Meanwhile, having returned to the eerie domain, I immediately opened the construction panel. I clicked to build the Inwind Forest and the Sorrow Mine. The next second, over 100 twisted trees burst from the ground in the forest of the dead. In another clearing, countless boulders surged up into a 10-foot mound. A cavern mouth split open at the top of the mound. 2 special structures were successfully completed. A few days later, Shirtu returned with the villagers of Sherdeng village. I immediately claimed the rewards, obtaining an Earth-grade lottery ticket. In a great mood, I first tucked the ticket into my backpack, then turned my attention to the new villagers. The sooner I assigned their roles, the sooner the materials would be produced. With a wave of my hand, countless rank 1 blood-attracting and flesh pills flew from the eerie domain, landing in the hands of the villagers. However, the villagers stared at the pills, too terrified to eat them. Only Hong Ling, as she received the pill, saw the envy and longing in the eyes of the other villagers. She paused in thought, then glanced at Shirtu. Is this what you mentioned on the way? The blessing from the god? Shirtu nodded. That's right. Eat it quickly, it's something precious. Hearing this, Hong Ling swallowed the foul-smelling pill. Seeing this, the others followed suit. The moment the pill entered their bodies, the frail bodies of the villagers began to swell at a visible rate. But Hong Ling's reaction was the most intense. Beams of radiance pierced through the dark clouds of the dead man's forest, accompanied by the melodious chorus of birds. From within the ghost domain, I watched the light with interest. Another celestial phenomenon. Is it the setting of this world? That those who trigger such events are dime a dozen. I didn't expect this little girl to be so capable. After a moment's thought, since she's a promising talent, I should give her some extra care. So I exchanged for more pills and sent them to her. Hong Ling swallowed the 4 pills. The power within her surged once again. In a mysterious haze, she gained a vague intuition about cultivation and spiritual energy. She shifted her gaze toward the white-robed figure floating in midair.
Hong Ling qui noticed
that everyone was immersed in the joy of recovering their health. No one noticed that white silhouette, yet the figure stood right there in the sky. It seems ordinary people are not destined to behold the glory of a god, but she could. Because of this discovery, Hong Ling felt a flicker of secret joy. Sensing the girl's gaze, I raised an eyebrow in surprise. You can see me? Hearing this, Hong Ling knelt on the ground without hesitation. Your talent is extraordinary. Your willpower is superior. One day you shall become a peerless genius. I expect you to cultivate with determination, day and night, without cease. Do not fail the prestige of my name. Hong Ling immediately bowed her head in prostration. I shall obey your will, my lord. As she rose, she looked at me urgently. What can we do for you now, my lord? I didn't expect Hong Ling to be so eager to become my drudge. So, I ordered Ghostfire to dismantle a snake demon's corpse, distributing dozens of portions of ordinary flesh. Feed yourselves first. Once your hunger is satisfied, report for duty at the forest camp and the mines. Just do your best. Hong Ling was stunned by my words. The Lord actually lets us eat before working, and doesn't even demand a quota. So, in this world, there truly is such a merciful God. The people of Daliang village received the fresh meat and immediately began preparing it. The villagers of Sherdeng village stepped forward to help. Soon, a rich aroma wafted from the stone pots. In an instant, the Sherdeng villagers erupted in excitement. Is meat really this fragrant? And this rice white as snow? How was this even grown? At that moment, Widow Li scolded them with a laugh, hands on hips. Stop all the shouting. Eat up and get to work. Don't waste the blessing of the god. The villagers nodded in agreement and began to devour the food. Once everyone was full, I opened the panels for the Een Wind Forest and Wailing Mines, assigning the new villagers to their respective tasks. After finishing that, I began to organize the rewards from this side quest. First, I dismantled the original bone snake. Using 49 portions of snake bone and essence blood, I summoned a new bone snake ghost servant. Based on the bone material conversion ratio, this new snake already possessed the strength of 1,000 units of ordinary bone material. It was now the strongest combat unit under my command. Simultaneously, the shop unlocked new items. Soul Sculpting Pill. The other 5 items were also upgraded to Tier 2, each requiring 5 corresponding materials for exchange. Only then did I realize that half a month of diligent pioneering wasn't as effective as killing a few giant demon beasts. It seems I need to find a chance to wipe out Huguang Ridge in one go. By then, the Shadowgrade sacrifice progress should be complete. I made a silent decision, planning to let my followers rest for 2 days, then have the young boy and girl lead the way to tear down the snake demon's nest. With that, I turned my attention to the Earthgrade lottery ticket. I clicked draw. Then, countless high-grade items flashed across the panel, finally settling on a building radiating an eerie aura. In an instant, it materialized beside the bone altar. Congratulations! Special building unlocked. General summoning platform. Building function 1. Domain of 10,000 filths return. Slowly enhances the strength of evil entities within ordinary buildings. Building function 2. Witte bone door knocking decree. Sacrifice 1 origin object of the target. Can temporarily control the target. You have unlocked a special building for the first time. You receive 1 free use of the bone knocking order. I studied the general's platform for a while, pondering it in my mind. As expected of a special building, it actually possesses 2 special abilities. But the second ability comes with some risk. If the summon target is above rank 6, it will not be bound by the general's platform. That would be no different from seeking death. I'll have to use it cautiously from now on. However, for the free summon granted by the system, there's no reason to hesitate. So without further thought, I activated the bone knocking order. The next second, the eerie blue flames atop the bone pillars surged 3 feet high. A gray shadow instantly appeared within the tongues of fire. A thin, screeching sound faintly echoed from the flames. Then a black crack suddenly split one of the bone pillars. A small rat suddenly leaped out from the crack. Who's the death wish idiot who dared drag Lord Rat to this godforsaken place? The rat's crimson eyes scanned the surroundings, finally locking onto the direction of my spiritual form. Its shrill voice was brimming with arrogance. So it was you brat. Dragging Lord Rat out of his burrow. You must be tired of living, looking at this peanut-sized rat demon. I couldn't help but find it amusing, so I deliberately teased it in a cold, eerie tone. For a mere rat spirit, you're quite arrogant. Hearing this, the little rat kicked off the ground and stood up, tilting its head back to shriek curses. You're the rat spirit. Your whole family are rat spirits. How dare you compare a lowly monster to Lord Rat? Lord Rat is a demon.
I'm absolutely livid.
I raised an eyebrow in surprise. A demon? What's that? I am an evil god. Hearing how I described myself, the rat suddenly let out a shrill laugh. Evil god? Ha ha ha. How interesting. Lord Rat has lived for 300 years, and this is the first time I've seen a sentient evil spirit. But for a little thing like you to call yourself a god, you've got some nerve. After speaking, he tried to take a couple of steps back, only to find he couldn't move an inch. Sensing something was wrong, the rat struggled frantically, but it was completely immobilized. Panic finally began to flicker in its eyes. You evil spirit, what trickery are you using to control Lord Rat? A faint smile played on my lips. I forgot to tell you, from the moment you were summoned, you belonged to me. The rat froze. It looked down at the mist entwined around its claws, then looked up at the eerie blue flames atop the platform. Its expression crumbled slowly. In that instant, it understood. The curse power in the flames was resonating with the black mist. You damn cheat. You played me. Lord Rat doesn't acknowledge such pathetic bindings. As it spoke, it tried to mobilize its demonic energy. A streak of dark green energy surged from within the rat, only to find that, as soon as the energy surged, most of it was sucked away by the black mist. After struggling for a while, the rat finally withered. It let its tail droop, its crimson eyes full of resentment. After a long while, as the black mist gradually dissipated, I heard the system's notification. You have obtained a rank 5 ghost servant. Plague Rat. I widened my eyes and looked at the little rat. I didn't expect such a tiny creature to actually be this powerful. Hearing my words, the plague rat's expression became incredibly sour. Let me emphasize this one more time. Lord Rat is not a monster, but a demon. I didn't engage with that and instead changed the subject. Look, since you belong to me now anyway, why not work for me? I'll guarantee you a life of luxury and wealth. As I spoke, I produced 2 rank 2 flesh pills. Seeing this, the plague rat simply flopped onto the ground. Wanting to order Lord Rat around? No way. Lord Rat will just stay right here lying down. What are you going to do about it? Die of frustration. I didn't feel any anger at the mockery. After all, I never expected to bribe a rank 5 henchman with just a few flesh pills. I'll just have to take it slow, since I can't make the plague rat work yet. Using it for entertainment isn't a bad idea. So, for the next 3 days, I lounged peacefully in the ghost realm, watching the new villagers diligently produce materials. The resources in the warehouse grew steadily. I felt deeply satisfied. During these 3 days, Hong Ling fully demonstrated her management talents, allocating supplies for over 100 people, and scheduling their routines, job rotations. She's organized everything perfectly, saving me a lot of trouble. Now, I've appointed her as the acting village chief. Early morning of the 4th day, I left the eerie domain to inspect the work. Just as I reached the forestry area, I felt something tugging at my hem. I looked down. It was the plague rat. The little rat's tail was drooping, but its face still wore an arrogant, rebellious look. I'm bored to death in that dump. Lord Rat is coming out for some fresh air. What's it to you? A slight smile played on my lips. I didn't refuse. I continued wandering around. The plague rat followed behind me, looking here and there, its eyes full of curiosity. Just then, footsteps suddenly echoed from nearby. I looked toward the sound. 2 villagers tending the spiritual fields passed by with hoes on their shoulders. Seeing humans here, the plague rat, a murderous glint flashed in its crimson eyes. Damn it! On Lord Rat's turf. How dare other creatures exist? As it spoke, dark green demonic energy surged from its body. But the next second, I pinned it down firmly. The plague rat was furious. It shrieked in rage. What the hell are you? How dare you touch Lord Rat? Believe it or not, Lord Rat will cover you in sores, rotting you to the bone. Hearing this voice, the 2 villagers, their faces turned pale. They scrambled backward. Other working villagers heard the commotion and gathered around. The rat can actually talk? It must have attained spiritual form, as expected of the spiritual fields granted by the Divine Lord. Even a rat stealing grain can become a spirit. The villagers chatted excitedly. This only made the plague rat angrier. You lowly insects! You're making Lord Rat furious. It wanted to shout a few more threats, but then Hong Ling pushed through the crowd. Her gaze swept across, instantly spotting the hazy figure in white behind the rat. She immediately dropped to her knees. Greetings, my lord. Though the villagers couldn't see me, they knew Hong Ling could behold the divine's countenance. So, everyone hurriedly knelt on the ground. I raised my hand, signaling Hong Ling to rise. It is fine. This rat is called the plague rat. It is my servant. There is no need for fear, seeing it is the same as seeing me.
Hong Ling loudly complied.
Then she relayed my decree to the others. It is the messenger of the divine, an auspicious omen. From now on, seeing it is seeing the divine lord. Hearing this, everyone bowed to the plague rat, shouting one after another. Greetings, Lord Rat. The plague rat looked bewildered. Auspicious omen? Me? In all my years of living, this is the first time someone called a rat an auspicious omen. Its bristling fur began to settle. Its tail quietly perked up. It gradually lost itself in the chants of Lord Rat. The plague rat felt a surge of pleasure. Even its gaze toward Hong Ling became much softer. I was somewhat surprised by the rat's smug expression. I had prepared for a long battle of wills. I didn't expect a single word from Hong Ling to win its favor. Is it really this easy to win over? As expected, the little sister is reliable. I sighed inwardly. Then I gave an order to Hong Ling. I have discovered that Huguang Ridge is the hiding place of the snake demon remnants. Prepare your gear immediately. Go to Huguang Ridge with Shirtu. Exterminate every last snake demon. As I spoke, a shimmering light enveloped in deathly energy landed before Hong Ling. A total of 8 second-tier blood-attracting and flesh-blood pills. 2 sets of second-tier bone armor and bone swords. These are gifts for you. Use them to strengthen yourselves first. Hong Ling caught the pills. She bowed deeply to me. Hong Ling will surely slay all the snake demons. I will not fail your trust, my lord. Beside her, Shirtu also reached out for the pills. After the two absorbed the medicinal effects, their energy surged rapidly, breaking through 100 units of flesh energy to reach the second tier. After this, I nudged the plague rat, who was lounging with its legs crossed, watching the show. The plague rat looked at me indignantly. How dare you be so insolent to Lord Rat? Your little brother here needs to go on a long trip. Aren't you coming along? Stop trying to trick Lord Rat. Lord Rat won't work for you for free. I remained expressionless. My tone carried a hint of deliberate regret. But you are an auspicious omen. While your little brothers risk danger at Huguang Ridge, the big brother hides in the back. It would sound terrible if word got out. As soon as these words were spoken, the plague rat's claw paused. Fine, I'll go. But let's get this straight first. Lord Rat is only responsible for protecting that little girl. If that brat dies, don't blame Lord Rat. After speaking, it sighed again, flopping straight down onto the ground. Its tail flicked with a sense of utter hopelessness. As for me, this humble rat, am now a slave to some black-hearted evil entity. I nodded with a smile. Seeing me agree so easily, the plague rat felt something was off, but couldn't put its finger on it. Evil entity. You said this rat is also an auspicious omen. You aren't lying to me, are you? When have I ever lied to you? The plague rat pondered for a moment. When I get back, you can tell me the details more thoroughly. Not that I really want to hear it. I just need to figure out whether what you said is true or false. I agreed. Before long, Hong Ling and Shirtu quickly got ready. The two bowed to me and set off on their journey. The plague rat lay lazily on Hong Ling's shoulder, its little claws clutching a piece of roasted meat given by the villagers. The trio left the forest of the dead. Following my instructions, Hong Ling decided to go to the pier of White Jade City first, then take the waterway to Huguang Ridge. Just as they arrived at the gates of White Jade City, the sight before them made Shirtu stop in his tracks. On the open ground outside the city gates, it was crowded with refugees in tattered clothes. Most of them were skin and bones, wrapped in ragged straw mats. Looking at this scene, Shirtu's eyes suddenly welled up. He knew, in a chaotic world, human lives are as worthless as grass. This was all too common. Shirtu subconsciously touched the food pouch at his waist, wanting to share his rations with those children. But Hong Ling grabbed him firmly. Don't. If you give them food now, it will only incite more people to fight. Once chaos breaks out, not only will you fail to save anyone, but you'll delay the master's mission. Shirtu froze. But they're starving to death. We can't just stand by and watch, can we? Hong Ling shook her head gently. It's not about standing by. We simply lack the means. You only have 1 bag of rations. How many can that actually feed? And the children who get the food, can they even protect themselves in this crowd of refugees? Hearing this, Shirtu gripped the food pouch tightly, a wave of indescribable bitterness rising in his heart. He understood the logic, but it was still hard to remain indifferent. At that moment, the plague rat shifted into a more comfortable position on Hong Ling's shoulder. You humans are such a hassle. Hearing this, Hong Ling turned her head slightly. Does Lord Rat have a better suggestion? Stop meddling in things that aren't your business. No. What Lord Rat means is that your gods have their own arrangements. The two looked at each other, completely agreeing with this statement. Lord Rat is right. Protecting the masses requires prioritizing. The gods sent us to Huguang Ridge to slay the snake demon, precisely to prevent more villages from being slaughtered, and more people from becoming refugees. With that, Hongling and Shirtu passed the refugee camp and entered White Jade City. Then they immediately rushed to the pier, found a boat, and headed for Huguang Ridge. At that moment, in the center of Huguang Ridge's lake, the Nyehai dragon was perched on the Jade Island. Its crimson vertical pupils stared down at the snake demons. Hurry up, what are you dawdling for? Get into the formation now. The mother snake was beside him, helping organize their offspring. Husband, is there a need to be this rushed? The formation still has some flaws. It's not too late to take it slow. The Nyehai dragon glanced at her. What do you know? You know that day is approaching. A few days ago, I went to Tsudao County and found signs that the evil entities are reviving. Although I devoured everyone who knew the truth in Sherdeng village, that old ghost of White Jade must have noticed something too. That old thing is cunning as hell. Our Huguang Ridge lineage must make plans early. We cannot just sit and wait for death. The mother snake sighed and had no choice but to speed up the snake demon's entry into the underwater formation. Just then, a small snake demon came crawling frantically from the shore. Great King, something's wrong. 2 cultivators are attacking. No sooner had the words fallen than a sharp sword chi suddenly surged from the shore. In an instant, a snake demon, too slow to dodge, was sliced in half. Then, a burst of flame ignited out of thin air, enveloping another snake demon, quickly burning it into a lump of charcoal. Then, a slightly youthful voice rang out. Shirtu is ordered to slay the demons. You wretched monsters, prepare to die. Along with the sharp ring of sword chi, several more snake demons fell to Shitu's bone sword. Nyehai Long stared intently at the 2 on the shore. The mother snake instantly dropped her gentle facade, revealing her hideous fangs. She lunged toward the shore alongside Nyehai Long. Shirtu swung his blade to meet them. The bone sword, carrying Tier 2 sword chi, struck Nyehai Long's head, but only left a faint scratch on the scales. Before he could strike again, the mother snake attacked from the side, her tail whipping toward his waist. He was sent flying instantly, crashing violently into the rocks on the shore, spitting out a mouthful of blood, staining the front of his robes red. Seeing this, Hongling raised her hand to conjure a wall of fire, and hurled a fire talisman at Nyehai Long.
Nyehai Long sneered.
You little brat, dare you play with fire before me? He slammed his tail against the lake's surface, sending dozens of water blades flying toward Hongling. A few water blades grazed Hongling's arm, leaving a wound deep enough to expose the bone. Seeing their pathetic state, Nyehai Long laughed even more wildly. Ha ha ha, with such meager skills, you dare act so bold in my Huguang Ridge? How laughable. You've delivered yourselves right to me. I'll tear your bones apart and devour you. The flesh of cultivators is a great supplement. Just then, a faint sigh drifted through the air. The blood-patterned wooden plaque in Shitu's chest flew out. A shimmering light erupted, and a black aura of death instantly spread. A skeleton slowly emerged from the light. Nyehai Long and the mother snake froze instantly, their eyes filled with terror. An evil spirit. It's actually a real evil spirit. At that moment, my eerie domain expanded, enveloping the entire lake. The world plunged into darkness. My gaze swept over the wounded Shirtu and Hongling. Then I walked over to the spectating plague rat and picked it up by the scruff. Still lying there watching the show? Such a lazy worker. Is this how you protect your comrades? The plague rat screeched and squealed. His short limbs flailed wildly. How dare you? Release your great Lord Rat. The little girl only took a few scratches. She's not dead yet. If she were really dying, I wouldn't be unable to act. Seeing the rat-like creature floating in midair, Nyehai Long's heart trembled again. He hadn't even noticed that another rat was hiding nearby. What terrified him even more was that he couldn't sense the rat's rank or aura at all. This meant the rat's strength far exceeded his, at least at the peak of Tier 3. Nyehai Long gritted his teeth. Damn it! It seems I must start the plan early. As long as I break through to Tier 3, there might still be a chance to escape. He glanced at the mother snake beside him, cursing her as useless. Then, Nyehai Long suddenly opened his maw and bit off half of the mother snake's body. The remaining half of the mother snake fell to the ground, writhing in agony. The calm lake water began to ripple and gradually started to boil. A surge of blood chi rose from the lakebed, flowing continuously into Nyehai Long's body. As the blood chi surged, the energy within Nyehai Long exploded. In an instant, he surpassed 10,000 units of flesh energy. Reaching Tier 3, Nyehai Long stared intently at the skeleton and the rat, a crazed smile curling on his lips. So what if you're evil spirits? Today, you pieces of trash will all die by my hand. Hearing this, I frowned. Noisy! I grabbed the plague rat by the scruff and hurled it toward Nyehai Long. Go! Pikachu! The moment the plague rat was thrown, it let out an incredulous shriek. Yet it showed no panic. It quickly adjusted its position in mid-air, transforming into a dark green streak of light, flying straight toward Nye Hailong. Just as Nye Hailong was immersed in the ecstasy of Tier 3, a piercing pain shot through the center of his brow. A blood hole 2 fingers wide pierced through the giant snake's skull. Fresh blood mixed with brain matter flowed out. How is this possible? Before he could finish, Nye Hailong's massive body crashed to the ground, completely lifeless. After the plague rat landed, it crouched aside, frantically grooming its blood-stained fur, spitting out bits of meat onto the ground. Damn it! This stinks to death. For this great rat. I stood my ground, controlling the skeleton to step forward, to lift the heavily injured Shirtu and Hong Ling. I took out 2 elixir pills, stuffing one into the mouth of the unconscious Shirtu. As the pill entered his system, the color slowly returned to Shitu's pale face. Hong Ling was still somewhat conscious. She took the pill, but a sudden wave of emotion surged within her. Her eyes instantly welled up. I reached out and gently patted Hong Ling's head, my voice soothing. Don't worry, you'll be fine. The touch on her head instantly calmed her heart. She looked up at me, the sorrow slowly fading away. Now that the Nilhai dragon is dead, the few remaining small snake demons dared not move. They were easily harvested by the skeleton. Just then, I sensed a faint trace of blood remaining at the lake bottom, my brow furrowing slightly. Beside me, the plague rat curled its lip. The 9-clan blood-binding array, sacrificing bloodkin to squeeze out energy. An ancient, outdated piece of trash. Only an idiot like Nilhai Dragon would treasure it. Go and break the array. The plague rat bristled instantly upon hearing this, acting indignant as the great rat. But then it heard me add, when we return, I'll treat you to braised snake with golden garlic, steamed snake slices with hibiscus, and salt and pepper crispy snake ribs. It immediately beamed with joy. You better not be lying to this rat. Before the words had even faded, the plague rat turned into a gray shadow and dove into the lake. A moment later, the lake water shook violently. Hundreds of snake demon corpses floated to the surface. Among them was one with eyes glowing with a faint pink luster. A mutant white snake. As soon as she broke free, she twirled on the surface of the water, transforming into a white-haired girl with pink eyes. Then, she knelt upon the water. This humble demon, Neil Chaoshi, thanks the immortal master for saving my life. I looked at her, a hint of surprise in my eyes. This white snake could not only take human form, but lacked any trace of bloodlust or malice, instead radiating a spiritual aura unique to human cultivators. At that moment, the plague rat scurried over, eyes gleaming as it stared at the white snake. This is a spirit beast. They don't rely on devouring flesh, but cultivate solely through spiritual energy. A second-rank spirit beast can shapeshift. Her meat would be a great tonic. Hearing this, the white snake trembled even more violently. I pondered for a moment, thinking to myself, maybe I'll take this shiny Pokemon back and see if she can work for me. If she's useful, she stays. If not, slaughtering her for meat isn't a loss. With that thought, I glanced at Neil Chaoshi. The Nilhai dragon committed countless atrocities,
slaughtering village,
and sacrificing his own kin. His crimes are unforgivable. I am the white bone god venerable. To protect humanity, I have come to slay demons. Considering you have not yet committed evil, and your consciousness has just awakened, I shall grant you mercy. I allow you to redeem yourself through service, and follow me. Hearing this, Chaoshi didn't dare hesitate for a second. She bowed deeply, kowtowing to the ground. Chaoshi is willing to submit to you, my lord. I shall be loyal for the rest of my life, ready for any command. The few remaining small black snakes nearby, seeing this, began wriggling their bodies, looking enviously at Neil Chaoshi's submission. They then looked at me pleadingly. Lord Venerable, we have also not committed any evil. Though we were born in Huguang Ridge, our hearts lean toward humanity. I glanced at them. Since you are willing to submit, you may all follow. The small black snakes hurriedly nodded and wagged their tails. Then I looked at Neil Chaoshi. In that case, Neil Chaoshi, go and carry Hong Ling and Shirtu. Then I turned to the black snakes. You shall clear the battlefield and carry these corpses to the forest of the dead. Once the order was given, Neil Chaoshi returned to her true form as a white snake, carefully lifting Shirtu and Hong Ling. The other black snakes picked up the corpses of their kin, and 2 of them even fought over who would get to carry the Nilhai dragon. The scene suddenly became quite eerie. Seeing this, the plague rat sneered. How pathetic. Why is your heart getting softer and softer? Protecting humans is one thing, but what's the point of keeping these low-level demons? I glanced at it. Waste not, want not. Got it? They're still useful for mining and chopping wood. The plague rat's crimson eyes lit up. It nodded its little head in deep agreement. Makes sense. You evil spirits really are heartless. I smiled, and looked again at the lustrous white jade island in the center of the lake. The island stood out vividly amidst the lake waters. A faint, Pure spiritual energy emanated from within. I once again pinched the plague rat by the scruff of its neck. The rat, licking its claws, instinctively felt something was wrong. Then, it heard my voice, sounding like a demon. Plague rat. Go bring that White Jade Island back here. You've got to be kidding me. You're treating Lord Rat like a donkey. Just finished fighting, and now you want me to gnaw on a rock? The plague rat bristled, but it didn't dare to actually quit. The rat could only roll its eyes, while reluctantly shuffling toward the lake. Damn it. Heartless evil spirit. All you know is how to exploit this rat. A rat's life is a life too. The plague rat opened its small mouth and took a sudden, powerful breath toward the island. Then, the entire island was actually gnawed right out of its foundation on the lake bed. At that moment, the system gave a prompt. Blood Grease Jade. Tier 4 Heavenly Treasure. Long-term where benefits cultivation. Also a top-grade material for artifact refining. Blood Jade Marrow. Tier 6 Heavenly Treasure. Born from within the Blood Grease Jade. Consuming it directly grants a massive boost in flesh energy. After reading this, I wrapped the shrunken island in my ghost domain and placed it on Niechaoshi. By now, the plague rat was so exhausted its fur had dimmed. It lay on the ground, panting heavily. Its resentful little eyes kept glancing at me, but seeing me exploit everyone equally, suddenly felt a bit better. Night fell. Niechaoshi and the group of demons were on their way back. Then I frowned, suddenly smelling a trace of death energy. An evil spirit, perhaps? Interesting. I released my divine sense to probe. I discovered that inside a cargo ship at Fengdao County Pier, a dark shadow was hiding. Seeing this, the corner of my mouth curled. I immediately ordered Shirtu and Hongling to go and slay the ghost. So, after Niechaoshi dropped Hongling and Shirtu at the pier, he bid them farewell. Then he carried the cargo toward the forest of the dead. I didn't leave, but followed the two from a distance. The plague rat lay motionless on my shoulder. By then, Hongling and Shirtu had contacted the ship owner Wang Er. Unexpectedly, he had known about it all along. Wang Er decided to go with the flow, and asked the two to use their spells to subdue the demon. The night grew deeper. A thin mist suddenly rose over the once calm river. Faint sounds echoed from the deck.
Ongling activated cultivation technique.
A wisp of flame condensed in her hand into a fire talisman. She gently pushed open the cabin door and stepped out. There stood a paper man at the bow of the ship. Its features were drawn on its face with clumsy brushstrokes. Its mouth was curled upward in an eerie grin. Hongling already held a fire talisman between her fingers. What entity haunts this place? What spirit is at work? The paper man did not respond, but its head suddenly spun 180 degrees, still staring at her with that eerie smiling face. Hongling didn't hesitate. The fire talisman in her hand shot out, yet the paper man neither dodged nor avoided it. Its arm was ignited by the flames, but was quickly extinguished by death energy. Hearing the noise, Shirtu immediately rushed out of the cabin. Raising his bone sword, he slashed down. Hongling took the chance to throw more fire talismans, each one wrapped around the paper man's body, igniting a raging blaze. Yet the paper man remained standing in place, like a target calmly awaiting destruction. Inside the cabin, Wang Er steeled his nerves and peeked through the door Shirtu had pushed open. When the firelight illuminated the paper man's face, he let out a piercing scream. "It's my brother Wang San's face." Hongling was shaken by these words. Hearing this, the paper man turned its head directly toward him. Seeing this, Wang Er collapsed to the floor. The next second, two streaks of death energy surged from the paper man. One coiled around Wang Er, the other lunged toward Hongling. Wang Er was touched by only a sliver, yet his limbs began to uncontrollably turn a papery white. Wang Er struggled and cried for help. Hongling's expression shifted, threw another fire talisman to intercept. The moment the fire talisman clashed with the death energy, I, standing atop the cabin, gripped the air, and the two streams of death energy were seized by an invisible hand, vanishing instantly. At the same time, the paper man turned to ash, but my gaze did not linger on the smoldering ashes, but shifted toward the river's surface. For the moment I struck, the death energy quickly escaped and sank to the riverbed. With a single thought, my ghost domain expanded across the water, and I plunged straight down. I dove deep, following the fading trail of death energy, until finally, atop the riverbed's silt, I saw countless paper men standing in dense crowds. Right then, their heads turned in unison, staring at me with eerie smiles. Seeing this, I gripped the void. The paper men instantly twisted and shattered, turning into shreds of paper that merged into the silt. After clearing them out, I retracted my ghost domain and looked toward the ancient ancestral hall in the distance. The plague rat was still lounging lazily on my shoulder. "Anything good down there? Worth you diving for fish in the middle of the night?" I shook my head. "Not sure. It's full of paper men, and there's a sunken ancestral hall. The death energy is heavy, but it feels strange. Have you ever seen ghost energy mixed with death energy?" The plague rat looked at me with disdain. "You're asking me? You're an evil spirit. I'm an evil spirit. You're a monstrosity. I'm a monstrosity." I slapped my forehead. "Fine. Let's head back first. Until I figure out what that thing is, I won't touch it for now. Meanwhile, at the city lord's mansion of Ziyu, Su Ziyuan gripped the communication jade talisman tightly, cold sweat beading on his forehead. On the other end of the talisman, sect leader Guishoren was raging. Useless waste. The Immortals' great plan is almost complete, yet you let all the joyous papers turn to ash.
Su Ziyuan.
Are you tired of living?
Su Ziyuan groaned inwardly.
Sect leader, please calm your anger. I do not know why, but the joyous papers enshrined in the secret room turned to ash overnight. But Guishoren didn't want explanations. He only wanted a solution. Su Ziyuan had a sudden thought. There are still refugees outside Bai Yu City. Perhaps they could be used as livestock to feed the river-suppressing general? Guishoren's voice grew colder. How much flesh and blood can refugees provide? Find your own way. I give you 3 days. I want to see new joyous papers. If you ruin the Immortals' plan,
Su Ziyuan hurriedly complied.
You know the consequences. Yes, I will attend to it immediately. After a long pause, Guishoren's voice returned. What about the General Star? Su Ziyuan beat his chest confidently. Everything is under control. I have acted according to the plan. The General Star's fate has been violently shaken, and the flesh and blood energy is pouring out, making it a perfect vessel at any moment. Su Ziyuan reported quickly. Very good. Keep a close watch. There must be no mistakes. Once the task is complete, the Immortal will reward you. A hint of satisfaction appeared in Guishoren's tone, and he promptly cut off the transmission. Su Ziyuan immediately summoned his confidant. Where is Jian Huaishuang? Where is he now? Several subordinates looked at each other. My lord, since that day at the city gate, no one has seen the sword immortal. We assumed you had other arrangements. Hearing this, the veins on Su Ziyuan's forehead bulged in rage. A bunch of useless wastes. Find him immediately. But remember, act in secret. We must not alert the enemy. Meanwhile, in the forest of the dead, I returned to my territory in high spirits. Nye Chaoshi and a few small black snakes had already arrived, coiled obediently around the perimeter. I didn't pay them much mind, and simply summoned the ghost fire to move the massive amount of materials brought by the snake demons into the ghost domain for dismantling. I instantly returned to the white bone altar, taking stock of the materials piling up like a mountain. A spark of excitement flashed in my eyes. After accumulating for so long, and with this bountiful harvest, I finally have enough materials for the sacrifice. I'm gonna upgrade everything. Without hesitation, I clicked sacrifice. Then, a colossal surge of energy instantly enveloped the bone altar. A brilliant, translucent light flared up. The altar's texture seemed to grow more solid, its aura becoming increasingly profound. My personal status panel updated accordingly. Current level, Eldritch grade. Eldritch domain range expanded to several thousand meters. Eldritch servant population increased to 100. Bone summoning materials upgraded to Tier 2. I gazed at the panel, lost in thought. This means the next upgrade requires a sacrifice of, a single upgrade requires a full 1 million units of ordinary materials. This is nearly equivalent to the entire population of a small city. I clicked my tongue in disbelief. Tier 2 materials aren't common goods. Only cultivators who have reached Tier 2, or demons, can produce them consistently. However, I wasn't worried, because in the building list I saw processing buildings like the Flesh Furnace and Soul Kiln. They can compress and purify mass low-tier materials into high-tier ones. So, the problem now is the population. To build and operate these factories, a massive amount of labor is required. With that thought, I looked toward the horizon. If the great evil god is to save all of humanity, let's start with White Jade City. Just then, the system granted a reward. The body of the evil god has been enhanced. The sacrifice function has been strengthened. An additional small panel appeared beneath the sacrifice menu, offering. Its function allows the sacrifice of complete high-grade materials, which are automatically converted into corresponding sacrifice progress. Depending on the quality of the high-grade material, additional rewards will be granted. Seeing this, I tossed the entire carcass of the Karma Sea Dragon onto the altar, sacrificed one ordinary century-old black snake demon. Special building unlocked. Blood imprisonment pool. Special skill 1. Breathless blood search, absorbs blood essence from the void. Every cycle generates one random, quality Tier 3 or Tier 4 blood. My eyes lit up. Not bad at all. The blood pool is essentially a stable, high-grade blood production facility. If it can produce Tier 4 blood, it's a massive profit. Next, I moved the blood imprisonment pool out of the Eldritch domain, placing it right in the center of my territory. I also threw in that massive piece of blood marrow jade, scavenged from Huguang Ridge. I intended to use the abundant blood essence to nourish the jade marrow. The blood marrow jade transformed into a miniature white jade island within the pool. Then, the blood in the pool rapidly converged to one side, while the other side gushed with spiritual spring water. The blood and clear water remained distinct, forming a scene like the Taiji Yin-yang. fish, harmonious yet eerie. After confirming there were no anomalies, I conveniently built an immortal testing stone beside it. Just at that moment, Hong Ling and Shirtu returned safely, making the already bustling territory even more crowded. The villagers, seeing the sudden appearance of the blood pool and the giant stone, such divine miracles, knelt and bowed toward the altar one after another, praising the divine power of the god. Then, I had Hong Ling organize the villagers to test their spiritual roots one by one. I stood to the side, watching the information from the testing stone feed into my personal panel. The vast majority of villagers had mixed spiritual roots. Their cultivation would be arduous, yet they could adapt to various types of work. Surprisingly, nearly half of the villagers had already broken through to Tier 1, becoming cultivators. It seems the aura of the general's platform has taken effect. When it was Li Daju's turn, he rubbed his rough, large hands, nervously pressing them against the testing stone. A faint light shimmered on the stone's surface, and several distorted patterns soon emerged. Li Daju's information lit up on my panel. Aptitude, mortal grade with spiritual root. Special physique 1, woodcutter. Logging efficiency increased by 20%.
Natao inheritance, vu gong Reincarnated.
While performing logging work, there is a 0.1% chance to obtain a random item. He's definitely cheating. Although the chance is low, it has already given me 2 surprises. Afterward, I bestowed a few pills upon Li Daju. Upon receiving the reward, Li Daju excitedly ran to the outsider he had just met today, Jian Hanshuang. Brother, look, this is the divine lord I told you about. Jian Hanshuang nodded, but shrank back slightly. On the other side, Shirtu had already placed his hand on the testing stone. Aptitude, Earth Grade Gold Spiritual Root. Special Physique 1, 100 Refined Body. Increases spell comprehension by 50%. Martial Arts Comprehension and Cultivation Speed.
Natao inheritance.
Tiangang Blade Art. Greatly strengthens the physical foundation, with a physique far surpassing those of the same tier, and can convert all blood chi into a blade edge, increasing martial skill damage by 300%. Finally, there is Hong Ling. Aptitude, Earth Grade Fire Spiritual Root. Special Physique, Exquisite Heart Aperture. Perception increased by 200%. Spell damage increased by 100%. Life Inheritance, Luan Fire Talisman. Charisma and Comprehension each increased by 100%. After completing this, I called Nye Chaoshi over. Aptitude, Earth Grade Water Spiritual Root. Special Physique 1, Pure Water Body. Can purify surrounding water sources, infusing them with a trace of spiritual energy. Long-term consumption strengthens the body. Life Inheritance, Natural Auspiciousness. Subtly brings peace and auspiciousness to the dwelling. Spirit beasts cultivate by absorbing heaven and earth energy. My eyes lit up when I saw the last column. I didn't expect Nye Chaoshi to be a natural auspicious beast. Then I looked at the white snake lying quietly aside. From this day forward, you shall be the well-dragon king of this place, in charge of the nourishment of the water source. Nye Chaoshi raised her pale pink eyes. Chaoshi obeys. Then, gliding her slender serpentine body, she came to the well, carefully coiling around the well's edge, pressing her body against the cold stones of the well. I watched her solemnly guarding a simple water well, and smiled slightly, quite obedient. Aren't you? Meanwhile, inside the White Jade City Lord's manor, Su Ziyuan listened to his subordinate's report with a heavy expression. My lord, we've tracked where Jian Huaishuang was last seen. He headed toward the Forest of the Dead. A few days ago, 2 mysterious cultivators indeed appeared. Rumors say they went to Huguang Ridge to slay the snake demon and subdue the remnants. According to Wang Er and others, both cultivators came from the Forest of the Dead. Upon hearing this, Su Ziyuan slammed his palm hard on the table. Immediately deploy more capable men. Infiltrate the Forest of the Dead. The primary mission is to find Jian Huaishuang. Bring him back to me no matter the cost. If obstructed, kill them all. At the same time, Su Ziyuan's confidant, Wang Wei, personally took the order. He selected a dozen elites of the first stage chi refining phase. The group set off toward the Forest of the Dead, radiating murderous intent. As soon as they stepped into the Forest of the Dead, an eerie aura rushed toward them. Wang Wei's heart tightened. His right hand already gripped the hilt of his sword. A powerful evil entity must be lurking here. As he led the team deeper into the forest, many villagers were gathered in the woods. The sound of carefree laughter and chatter. A flicker of disgust and vigilance flashed in Wang Wei's eyes. As expected, puppets whose minds were bewitched by evil. Then, his gaze caught a figure in the corner. Jian Huaishuang. Having found the target, Wang Wei felt slightly relieved. He gave a signal to his subordinate Tang Tao.
Tang Tao understood.
And strode up to Jian Huaishuang. Senior brother Jian, the immortal celebration is approaching. Sect affairs are hectic. It would be best to return to White Jade City with us immediately. Jian Huaishuang already felt he had overstayed his welcome. Hearing this, he nodded silently. But just as he was about to leave, Widow Li stepped forward and grabbed his sleeve. Young man, you're Your injuries aren't healed yet. Your face is still so pale. How can you leave now? Rest for 2 more days. Wait until your body has recovered. She turned to look at Wang Wei and the others. Are you all blind? If you want to take him, look if his wounds are fully healed first. Wang Wei stepped forward, spiritual energy erupting around him, forcing Widow Li to stumble back. Impudent, you ignorant peasants, bewitched by evil spirits. How dare you obstruct an official's duty? Kneel before me. As he spoke, he pointed his fingers like a sword. A condensed purple sword chi tore through the air, swift as lightning, striking directly at Widow Li's knees. Jian Huaishuang's pupils contracted. Almost as a reflex, he swung his greatsword to shield Widow Li. The sword chi slammed violently against the thick spine of the greatsword. Seeing him actually dare to interfere, Wang Wei laughed in rage. Jian Huaishuang, a waste like you dares to strike at me? You've truly lost your mind. The foundation of the White Jade Sword Sect is to slay demons and protect the way. As the head disciple of the Sword Sect, instead of slaying demons, you protect these evil puppets. Heretical and rebellious, a complete disgrace to the Sword Sect. Jian Huaishuang gritted his teeth, pouring his remaining spiritual power into the greatsword. The blade began to glow faintly. He swung the sword across to shield Widow Li. Another thunderous crash erupted. The greatsword was violently knocked aside. A sharp surge of sword chi slammed into Jian Huaishuang's chest. His body crashed heavily to the ground. Widow Li was caught in the residual blast, taking some injuries herself. In that critical moment, a furious shout exploded like a clap of thunder. Stop! Then, a figure instantly cut into the center of the battlefield. Wang Wei couldn't even see the newcomer's movement. He only felt an irresistible force, slamming violently into his chest. The next second, he was sent flying backward, spitting blood, only stopping after snapping a strange tree as thick as a bowl. Wang Wei looked up with great effort, seeing a youth in bone-white armor before him. Slowly withdrawing his fist, Wang Wei's face turned pale with horror. A third-stage heart nightmare realm. In this den of evil spirits, how could there be such a young third-stage expert? Shida's face remained expressionless. Without a single word, he charged toward the lackeys. In the blink of an eye, over a dozen elites were on the ground, wailing in pain, completely stripped of their fighting strength. Then he picked up the heavily injured, limp Wang Wei, tossing him with the other elites whose limbs had been broken. A middle-aged man stepped forward carrying a hoe. Brother Shirtu, what should we do with these people? Just as Shirtu was about to speak, my voice echoed directly in his mind. Exterminate them all. Shirtu nodded slightly. He drew the bone sword from his waist, stepping slowly toward the paralyzed Wang Wei, feeling the tangible killing intent. Wang Wei screamed in terror, begging for mercy. You can't kill me. I am from the Bai Yu City Lord's manor. Before the words finished, Wang Wei's head hit the ground. The remaining guards had no power to resist. Their throats were quickly slit. Then, a fit of violent coughing came from the side. Everyone looked toward the sound, seeing Jian Huaishuang on the ground, trembling violently, and there was a bloody hole right in his forehead. This horrifying sight shocked everyone to the core. Yet Jian Huaishuang himself was completely unaware. He struggled to prop himself up. Toward the worried villagers around him, he bowed deeply and respectfully. Then he limped away from the forest of the dead. Widow Li watched with a heavy heart, wanting to step forward and stop him, but Hong Ling gently held her back. Let him go.
Only.
This is the will of the gods. He has a mission he must fulfill.
Widow Li siga deeply.
Turning quickly to pack some dried meat and healing herbs, she jogged after him, forcing the bundle into Jian Huaishuang's hand. Take this, eat it on the way, take care of yourself. Having said that, she turned away and stopped looking, holding the bundle that still carried her warmth. His body trembled slightly. Thank you. Meanwhile, I instructed Ishu. Take Shitu's blood-patterned wooden token. We're following him. Ishu tilted his head. What's the point of watching him in such a pathetic state? I glanced at the corpses of Wang Wei and the others. A slight smirk played on my lips. Bai Yu City sent such a grand gift to our forest of the dead. If we don't return the favor, wouldn't that be rude? And while we're at it, let's see what Bai Yu City and the Sword Sect are actually plotting. Hearing this, Ishu's eyes lit up. Causing trouble? Yes, yes, yes. Lord Rat loves causing trouble. Ishu's figure blurred. In a swirl of black light, he transformed into a human wearing tight black night gear, with a strange half-mask covering his face. Then, we followed far behind Jian Huaishuang. Jian Huaishuang walked extremely slowly, unaware that he was being tailed, until we approached the borders of Bai Yu City. I keenly noticed that the number of refugees gathered outside the city, compared to when Shirtu and Hong Ling last visited, had drastically decreased. Right at the city gate, Jian Huaishuang was suddenly intercepted by 3 Sword Sect disciples. One of them stepped forward and shoved Jian Huaishuang violently. Caught off guard, Jian Huaishuang stumbled back. Seeing his wretched state, the disciple grew even more arrogant, spitting almost directly into Jian Huaishuang's face. Waste! The immortal celebration is almost here. The entire sect is working themselves to the bone. And look at you, playing hide and seek, are we? Your failure to supervise left us brothers to face the master's wrath, kneeling in the ancestral hall for an entire night. The more he spoke, the more his rage boiled, and he lashed out, kicking Jian Huaishuang's shin. Jian Huaishuang let out a muffled groan, his body jolting violently, cold sweat instantly beating on his forehead. But he kept his lips tight, remaining silent. The leading disciple sneered at the sight. Still clutching that broken sword of yours? What act are you putting on? Are you even worthy of a sword now? As he spoke, he reached out to seize the great sword in his arms. For a few ant-like mortals, you dared to use such forbidden arts. And the result? Your cultivation is completely gone, and you've become this pathetic ghost. Tell me, aren't you the biggest joke since the founding of our sword sect? Meanwhile, in the shadows, I poked the plague rat. Give him a hand. The plague rat pointed to himself. Help him? What's in it for you? In this great wasteland, strength is everything. He threw away his own power. It was utterly foolish. What is there to pity? I smiled. Not much of a benefit. Then why are you asking Lord Rat to go? I sighed, looking at that figure of silent endurance. I admit I couldn't do what he did, but I admire true martyrs. Kindness comes with a price. This was his own choice, and naturally he must bear the consequences. I paused, then pulled out a small medicine bottle. Go on, and bring these 2 pills to him. Remember to tell him, no matter when, a martyr should never regret their choice. The plague rat stared at me for a long while, finally muttering a sentence. Strange. You evil spirit, truly strange. With that, the plague rat flickered, appearing at the city gate like a phantom. What's all the noise? You bunch of scum, disturbing my peace. The 3 sword sect disciples didn't even see him move, before an irresistible force struck them. Their faces stung from several sharp blows. As they staggered and fell to the ground, the 3 were shocked and furious, yet they couldn't gauge the depth of this black-clad figure. They only felt an unfathomable aura, far surpassing that of their master. Terrified out of their wits, they hurriedly bowed in respect. We wonder which great master you are, senior, and why you interfere in our sword sect's internal affairs. The plague rat crossed its arms arrogantly. I'm here for your damn immortal celebration day. I just don't like the look of you. Is that a problem? Now get lost, you eyesores. The 3 felt as if they'd been granted a royal pardon, not daring to say another word, hurriedly hoisting Jian Huaishuang to enter the city. Then the plague rat stopped them, tossing a crude porcelain bottle to Jian Huaishuang, his tone still malicious. A gift from my master. My master said, the path was your own choice, so don't damn regret it. With that, he vanished instantly. At this moment, I did not pay much attention to the city gate, but was watching another spot outside Ziyu City. A troop from the city lord's manor, accompanied by several Bai Yu city guards, appeared among the refugees. A few refugees lying dying on straw mats, upon seeing the people from the manor, actually scrambled up nimbly, their eyes gleaming with hope. The surrounding refugees surged forward like a tide, surrounding them completely. The Lord is here. Is it our turn today? The crowd buzzed, and the discussions reached my ears. A tall, thin man tugged his companion's sleeve. I told you the city lord is a living bodhisattva. He started distributing porridge a few days ago, and now he's hiring workers to expand the new city. Once inside, you'll be a proper citizen. What a godsend. The man beside him was equally excited. Among the officials from the manor, the leading middle-aged man commanded his subordinates. What are you standing around for? Maintain order. No elderly, weak, or disabled. Only the young and strong. Move faster. The guards, upon receiving orders, roughly shoved the crowd. Soon, about 100 relatively qualified young adults were screened out. Their faces were blank, yet tinged with the joy of a new beginning. The man glanced over them, seeming reasonably satisfied. He waved his hand. Take them away. Meanwhile, I remained hidden in the eerie realm with the plague rat. I suddenly recalled Hong Ling's previous report. My lord, a vast number of refugees have gathered outside Bai Yu City. All their homes were destroyed by demons, and they've fled here for refuge. They lack food and clothing, living in constant peril. If you need manpower, just a bit of food, and they would gladly risk their lives for you. I had planned to have Hong Ling and Shirtu handle this soon, but I didn't expect the city lord's manor to beat me to it. Thinking this, I whispered to the plague rat beside me, follow them. Then we arrived at the riverbank. A medium-sized cargo ship was already docked there. The guards impatiently urged the refugees, get on the boat. What are you lingering for? The refugees looked at the ship and the murky river water. Some showed hints of anxiety on their faces, but under the guards' shouts, they stepped onto the gangplank one by one. Then, the middle-aged man produced a thick stack of blank papers, requiring every refugee boarding to leave a thumbprint. The plague rat sniffed the air, covering its nose in disgust. Death energy. Faint, but The scent of an evil spirit is definitely clinging to these papers. I nodded upon hearing this. I didn't expect the evil spirit in the river to be backed by the Bai Yu city administration. I just wonder if this was the city lord's own doing, or ordered by the sword sect behind him. I originally didn't have a bad impression of the Xiu sword sect. After all, they protected the city's people, and produced an upright figure like Jian Huaishuang. Once all the refugees were on board, the cargo ship slowly left the shore and headed toward the center of the river. Seeing this, I frowned slightly. There's definitely something fishy going on. Follow. Let's go meet this river spirit. Can't you spirit types just handle your own business? Stop dragging Lord Rat into this. Relax. I just leveled up. I'm terrifyingly strong now. There's no match for me. The cargo ship sailed away from the shore, drifting downstream with the murky current. The middle-aged man and several core members stood by the river, whispering about how to celebrate once they returned. Meanwhile, the plague rat lurked in the shadows, with a slight flick of its mind. A strand of colorless and odorless plague. Gas seeped into their mouths and noses. The middle-aged man suddenly felt an itch in his throat and couldn't help but cough. Then, he discovered to his horror that on the back of his hand, massive pustules were rapidly swelling. His skin turned black and rotted at a visible speed. Just as he tried to call for help, he collapsed to the ground along with the other stewards. Breathless, the plague rat then quietly reappeared beside me. He clapped his paws. Done. These pieces of trash aren't even worthy of being a warm-up for Lord Rat. I just stared at the ship without looking back, giving him a half-hearted thumbs up. Good job, Ratty. As the ship ventured deeper, the fog on the river grew thicker. The air was laced with a faint stench of decay, and an unsettling, bone-chilling cold. Seeing this, I felt certain. Ghostly energy, and death energy. It really is that mysterious thing from last time. The refugees on board also sensed the eerie atmosphere, and began to stir in panic. What's happening? Why is the fog so thick? Something's not right. The guards were clearly nervous as well. Shut up. Everyone be quiet. They violently threw open the cabin doors, using scabbards and whips to drive the refugees onto the deck. The refugees huddled together in the center of the deck. Then the guards brought out ropes, binding them tightly one by one. Someone screamed in terror. My lord, what is this for? Aren't we going to the new city? The guard leader sneered and kicked open the cargo hatch, revealing a pile of heavy stones stacked inside. The refugees were struck with horror. The guards hauled out the boulders, tying them firmly to the waist or legs of each refugee. That's right, we're sending you to the new city to be the foundation. Now either jump in yourself, or I'll throw you in. Meanwhile, I ordered the plague rat from the riverbank. Go save them. Hearing this, the plague rat swiftly slipped beside the guard captain. Without hesitation, it snapped his neck. The other guards were struck with terror. Who is there? Could it be the general of Zhenjiang manifesting? The plague rat didn't bother to speak. A dark green plague erupted from its body. In an instant, the few remaining men were corroded to nothing. The ropes binding the refugees quietly snapped under the corrosion of the rat's demonic aura. Yet, the refugees themselves were unharmed. They watched the guards vanish from the deck, and the terrifying figure in black who appeared out of thin air. The joy of rescue that had just sparked was instantly replaced by greater terror and wailing. The plague rat let out an impatient roar. Stop wailing. Suddenly, all sound vanished. The plague rat nodded with satisfaction. Now listen to me, and do exactly as I say. Which of you knows how to sail? Hearing this, a few men tremblingly raised their hands. The plague rat eyed them for a moment, then tossed them a map of the Fengdao County docks. You few, sail this ship back to this location. 2 children in bone armor and a bone snake will be waiting for you. The men looked at the wooden plaque, hesitating to speak. Don't ask questions, just do it. With that, it flickered and vanished. Elsewhere, I dove back to the riverbed, heading straight for the sunken ancestral hall. As I drew closer, the silhouette of the building became clear in the dim water. It was a structure meticulously crafted from colored paper. A plaque hung above the hall's entrance, inscribed in thick ink, Zhenjiang Shrine. I tried to envelop the paper shrine within my eerie realm, but found I couldn't contain it from the outside. So, I expanded my divine sense to perceive the energy fluctuations. Phantom grade, but the aura was strange. Its power was more chaotic and mixed. The ghostly energy permeating the river originated from this very paper shrine. With that thought, I stepped directly through the open paper gates. Suddenly, the surroundings shifted violently. The freezing water and murky silt vanished instantly. A sun actually appeared overhead, and the ground beneath me became solid bluestone paving. The surrounding buildings shifted from illusory paper into real wood and stone structures. People bustled about. It was the scene of a thriving, prosperous temple. A kind-looking old man in ancient robes approached, bowing deeply to me. Dear pilgrim, have you come to offer incense and pray for blessings? I studied the old man, but did not answer. Instead, I deployed my eerie realm once more. Invisible shackles locked the old man firmly in place. The benevolent smile on his face didn't change a bit. He continued to repeat like a broken record, "Dear pilgrim, have you come to offer incense and pray for blessings?" I understood. Puppet? It seemed similar to my bone ghost servant, puppets controlled by a malevolent entity. At that moment, my eerie realm expanded to its limit inside the shrine. Death energy surged from my body, instantly dispersing the death energy sustaining the old man. The old man's form slowly faded away, and almost simultaneously, every pilgrim inside and outside the shrine froze. Then, every single one of them turned their heads toward me. "Dear pilgrim, please offer incense." As the words fell, they began to move with stiff, rigid steps, slowly swarming toward me from all directions. Seeing this, I quickly contracted my eerie realm, and my death energy erupted violently. The moment those figures touched the shockwave of death, they crumbled one by one, reverting into colorful paper scraps fluttering in the air. The vision of the prosperous temple peeled away rapidly, revealing the paper shrine at the riverbed once again. In the center of the shrine, a blurred divine statue was enshrined. Under the continuous influence of my death energy, the statue revealed its true form, a suit of armor folded and assembled from thick paper. The armor was tightly bound by several black iron chains, with yellow talismans plastered all over the links. This sight confirmed my previous suspicion. This was far beyond the capability of the White Jade City Lord's manor. It must be the work of the White Jade Sword Sect, feeding a malevolent entity with the flesh and souls of mortals, then binding it with talismans and chains. What exactly does the Sword Sect hope to gain from this entity? Then I summoned my bone ghost servant, commanding the skeleton to seize the chains. Death energy clashed violently with the spiritual light of the talismans, creating a sizzling sound. The skeleton then gave a sudden, powerful yank. With a loud snap, the chains shattered. The talismans instantly lost their luster. Once freed from its restraints, the paper armor began to tremble violently, emitting an even more ferocious ghostly and deathly aura, as if preparing to strike back. But I used an even more powerful death energy to crush the entire paper shrine and that armor. In an instant, all the anomalies vanished. The violent aura subsided, leaving only a purple paper cutting behind. I picked up the cutting and stored it in my warehouse. Meanwhile, at the Xiu City Lord's mansion, Su Ziyuan paced back and forth in his study. Several days had passed. Wang Wei, his confidant, and the elite squad sent to the Dead Man's Forest had completely vanished without a trace, and the stewards and guards sent yesterday to deal with the refugees and livestock had also failed to return. What on earth is happening? Right now, Su Ziyuan felt a growing sense of dread that things were spiraling out of control. Just then, the communication jade talisman in his robe glowed faintly.
Su Ziyuan.
Tomorrow is the celebration of the Immortal. The Sword Sect disciples will all descend the mountain. This is the day of the High Immortal's arrival. Not a single mistake will be tolerated. If there is any failure, you alone will be held accountable. Su Ziyuan spent the entire night tossing and turning in anxiety. The next day before dawn, along both sides of the city's main road, crowds of citizens were already kneeling in dense masses. They wore their finest clothes, their faces a mix of piety, awe, and anticipation. Before long, nearly 100 figures flew in from the horizon, dressed in matching white sword robes. Leading them was none other than Jian Huaishuang. Seeing this, countless citizens erupted into frenzied cheers. And by the side of the main road, in a private room on the second floor of a restaurant, the plague rat and I sat by the window. My gaze swept over the formation of Sword Sect disciples in the sky, my brow furrowing slightly. Strange. It wasn't just the few I had seen before, but every single Sword Sect disciple had an unnaturally ghastly pallor. Their energy was overwhelming, just like that paper effigy evil spirit at the bottom of the river. They were all infused with a thick, ghostly aura. I paused, my voice tinged with cold mockery. Living humans, half man, half ghost. Evil spirits, half ghost, half demon. This so-called White Jade Sword Sect turns out to be a nest of ghosts. The plague rat looked at those bamboo hats with great interest. Do you think under those hats, they're all just like that brat Jian Huaishuang, with a giant hole in their heads? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I shifted my gaze to the ground, where Su Ziyuan was leading a group of officials to greet them, bowing deeply to the leading elders of the Sword Sect, his face plastered with a sycophantic smile. Seeing this, the plague rat rubbed his hands in excitement. Why don't we take them all out while they're gathered? Wipe the whole lot of them out in one go. Old man rat hasn't stretched his muscles in a while. I shook my head, looking toward the towering altar in the center of the city. Not yet. The main attraction hasn't appeared. Once the disciples landed, they first paraded through the city to bestow blessings, scattering immortal dew, said to ward off evil and disaster. Then, A solemn sacrificial ritual was held before the great altar. Throughout the entire process, every disciple moved in perfect unison, their faces devoid of emotion, while the citizens were immersed in a feverish atmosphere of faith, completely oblivious to the truth. By noon, the ritual reached its critical phase. The central square was teeming with people. Every eye was fixed on the front of the altar. Jian Huaishuang stood alone before the masses. He took a deep breath and began to chant the final prayer. His voice, amplified by spiritual power, echoed across the square, carrying a strange, haunting rhythm. Just then, the plague rat suddenly twitched his nose. Fog is rolling in. I gave a soft hum and continued to watch in silence. As Jian Huaishuang's chant reached its end, his voice suddenly soared, filled with a devotion bordering on madness. Kneel before the high immortal. The moment those words were spoken, every citizen in the square, along with the sword sect disciples arrayed behind them, dropped to their knees in unison, and at that very moment, they removed their hats or headscarves. What unfolded was exactly as the plague rat had guessed. Those nearly 100 disciples revealed the tops of their heads, which were exactly like Jian Huaishuang's. Their skulls were completely pierced through. Among the kneeling citizens, a significant number also had holes, some large, some small, yet no one showed any sign of alarm. They simply ignored it as if it were normal. Now, Jian Huaishuang looked up to the sky and continued to chant, "The white jade capital in the heavens." As the line left his lips, from the bloody hole in his forehead, a tentacle suddenly shot out, piercing straight toward the sky. Almost at the same instant, the blazing midday sun suddenly dimmed and grew gloomy, and those tentacles twisted and coiled in the air, finally swelling into a massive crimson demon. It extended countless tentacles, piercing precisely into every kneeling worshipper below. Yet no one resisted or felt terror. Instead, they all looked up in unison, screaming with deafening, fanatical cheers. The immortal touches my brow, binding my hair to receive eternal life. The next second, millions of tentacles rapidly drained the flesh and energy of the people, funneling it into that giant sphere of flesh in the sky. At the same time, I set down my teacup. Let's go. It's our turn to take the stage. With those words, the plague rat and I vanished from the private room. On the square, the plague rat darted rapidly around the perimeter. Then came a flurry of dense gnawing sounds. Those tentacles connecting the flesh sphere above to the millions of believers below were severed at the root in an instant. Sect leader Guoshoren, seated high on the terrace, bolted upright. Who goes there? The elders behind him paled in shock. And the citizens, their divine connection severed, were first bewildered. Then they cast looks of pure rage at the plague rat, as if he had robbed them of a supreme blessing. The plague rat waved his hand, his tone dripping with impatience. Damn it! What an ungrateful bunch of fools! Guoshoren immediately ordered. Form the array. Slay this monster. The sword sect disciples below moved mechanically upon hearing the command. Blades unsheathed, forming a sword array. Their killing intent instantly locked onto me and the plague rat. Expressionless, I simply raised my hand. In a flash, dozens of bone-white skeletal servants and a hideous bone serpent appeared out of thin air. Guoshoren's pupils contracted. Third-rank spectral entities, so many of them. You are the evil spirit from Dead Man's Forest? I gave him no time to think. With a single thought, kill them. Once the order was given, the skeletons and bone serpent charged directly at the sword sect disciples in the array. Faced with an absolute gap in power, the disciples, already half-ghost puppets, collapsed instantly. Guoshoren's eyes nearly burst as he watched his disciples slaughtered. Stop! He formed a hand seal. His spiritual energy flared wildly in a self-destructive burn. I humbly pray for the great immortal to descend and slay this evil spirit. This disciple offers himself as a sacrifice. I let out a cold snort. A grotesque-level spectral domain erupted, instantly enveloping the entire square. The mist then dissipated. The next second, the once fanatical citizens were suddenly gripped by terror. The plague rat threatened them viciously. Shut up! Keep screaming and I'll kill every last one of you. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a terrifying murderous aura, instantly silencing the scene, leaving only suppressed sobbing and fearful trembling. And Jian Huaishuang, standing before the altar, shuddered violently the moment the mist cleared. The void and numbness in his eyes receded like a tide, returning a flicker of clarity and pain. He saw the carnage before him, not knowing exactly what had happened. Only fragmented memories remained in his mind. But the scene before him reminded him mercilessly that this was the true face of the sword sect and the White Jade Immortal. A searing pain from the collapse of faith and an overwhelming confusion surged through his heart. The plague rat glanced at him with some surprise. You've been drained for so long, and you actually managed to wake up? Jian Huaishuang looked at the plague rat. Senior, what on earth happened? The plague rat gestured with his chin toward the surroundings. Can't you see for yourself? At that moment, several elders seized the chance to fly down, landing beside Jian Huaishuang, pinning his limbs down. Protect the vessel. The vessel must not be harmed. Great Immortal, Please descend quickly. After the demon in the sky absorbed Guoshoren's energy, it lowered another tentacle. Its form suddenly contracted, forcing itself through the tentacle and into Jian Huishuang's body. Jian Huishuang let out a scream of agony, his body convulsing violently. After a moment, all struggling ceased. Jian Huishuang slowly opened his eyes. Those eyes, once filled with resilience and confusion, now became utterly indifferent. His gaze fell upon me. The evil spirit of Dead Man's Forest. I've heard much of your reputation. Just call me White Jade. I stood there, hands behind my back. I am the White-Boned Divine Sovereign. A strange smile appeared on Bai Yu's face. Eldritch grade. You are impressive. The strength of a third-tier malevolent spirit can rival a fourth-tier creature. Coupled with the most troublesome death chi, even if a fifth-tier entity arrived, they might not necessarily gain the upper hand. I admit that right now I am no match for you. A slight smirk played on my lips. You're quite self-aware. So, do you intend to surrender? The smile on Bai Yu's face remained. He suddenly struck out with his palm, hitting the heads of the elders protecting him. The elders died instantly. You aren't the original malevolent spirit, are you? No need to deny it. Though malevolent spirits are powerful, they possess no consciousness. They are merely anomalies following certain rules. But you have a clear consciousness. You have goals and emotions. You don't actually need to be so wary of me. We are the same kind of being, aren't we? The plague rat spat in dissatisfaction nearby. Who could possibly be the same as a freak like you? Neither human nor ghost. Bai Yu wasn't angered. He raised his hand. Countless tiny tentacles erupted from his body again. They coiled around the bodies of the Sword Sect disciples in the square, dragging them into his body. Once this was done, his aura surged in power. In truth, we are not enemies. We can cooperate. You have succeeded, and I am close to succeeding as well. At this moment, I can feel that there isn't just one aura within Bai Yu. There is also a heavy scent of resentment and slaughter. He has imprisoned all the souls within himself, becoming a true ghostly devourer. Seeing that I remained unmoved, Bai Yu didn't lose heart. You should also know that the Golden Buddha is about to descend. When that happens, how could the righteous path of Immortals and Buddhas tolerate beings like us? But if we join forces, at least the Thousand Islands prefecture will be ours for the taking. I raised an eyebrow. Not bad. I am indeed aware. It seems you know quite a lot as well. The smile on Bai Yu's face deepened. In this world, only the status and power of malevolent spirits are supreme. You successfully seized the body of a malevolent spirit, establishing your foundation, and I have found a way to steal a divine name and condense faith. We are natural allies. As he spoke, he waved his hand violently, scattering talismans that radiated a chilling ghostly aura. They fluttered around him. Watch closely. On such an important immortal celebration day, as an ally, you should witness this with me. Bai Yu took out the paper slips collected from the refugees. He slammed them violently into his own forehead, forcing them into that gaping bloody hole. Then, the surrounding talismans flew out, shooting precisely towards specific points around the square. They embedded themselves into the ground, instantly lighting up the hidden patterns beneath the bluestone slabs. Then, a summoning array suddenly flared up on the square's floor, enveloping countless terrified citizens, and the core of the array was centered on Bai Yu himself. At this moment, Bai Yu's face bore a conviction bordering on madness. Ha ha ha! With the sacrifice of every human and animal in this city, I summon my Zhenjiang shrine into this world, offering the resentment of 10,000 souls, to complete my body as a ghost immortal. However, after his words fell, the paper shrine he expected to descend did not appear in the square. There was only a deathly silence. The manic laughter on Bai Yu's face froze, turning into shock and disbelief.
Impossible.
My shrine, the malevolent spirit I painstakingly nourished with ghostly energy. How could it fail to be summoned? At that moment he keenly sensed that his connection to the Zhenjiang shrine had not been severed, but that thread of connection seemed blocked by something, like death chi. Was it you? What did you do? I smiled. Sorry. I never once agreed to be your ally. Hearing this, Bai Yu's mind was violently shaken. The energy within his body instantly spiraled out of control and backfired. He suddenly let out a piercing, wretched scream. His hands clutched his forehead tightly. His body convulsed violently. The plague rat let out an undisguised sneer, kicked Su Ziyuan, who was standing nearby. Look, old man, this is your immortal master? Doesn't he look absolutely pathetic? Su Ziyuan cowered, not daring to argue. Nor did he dare look directly at the grotesque form of Bai Yu. Even now, he felt as if he were in a dream. A perfectly good immortal celebration day. How did it turn into a ritual for evil spirits to revel in? The true face of immortal Ziyu, how could it be such a terrifying monstrosity? Then all those years of his diligent service, even doing things that defied his conscience, all for the sake of the Sword Sect, what was it all for? Meanwhile, amidst Bai Yu's violent struggle, he stumbled suddenly, nearly collapsing to his knees. Why? My voice remained calm. We walk different paths. We cannot coexist. But when Ziyu looked up again, The indifference in his eyes had vanished, replaced by a look of absolute resolve. Now, it wasn't just Ishu raising an eyebrow, even a flicker of surprise crossed my eyes. Under that level of erosion and backlash, this man's consciousness could actually regain control. Jian Huaishuang first struggled to steady himself and bowed solemnly toward Ishu. Then he turned to me and knelt heavily upon the bluestone pavement. I, Jian Huaishuang, humbly thank you, Great One, for the gift of the medicine. I was about to speak, but I noticed the dark patterns spreading across the square. Though their glow had dimmed, they were still relentlessly draining energy. The array was no longer trying to communicate with the evil beneath the river, but was more greedily stripping away the flesh and souls of all the citizens. Countless fine threads spread from the array, entwining themselves around the people. Their faces turned ashen before my very eyes, their gazes growing vacant. They wailed in agony, yet were powerless to break free. I frowned slightly, and with a wave of my hand, severed a cluster of threads. Wherever the aura of death passed, the threads disintegrated, but immediately, more threads surged from the array's patterns. I could feel that the array's power shared the same source as the river-suppressing shrine, carrying the characteristics of evil spirits. I sighed softly. This is getting troublesome. Ishu curled his lip. This damn array is like a hedgehog. Can you gnaw a hole in it? Hearing this, Ishu bristled. Are you insane? Do you really think Lord Rat is just some common mouse? Besides, casting a spell would come at a cost. Anyway, this array has no effect on us. At most, these people below will just be sucked dry. I looked regretful, truly a waste. But you are more important. Beside us, Jian Huaishuang listened in silence, seeing the array beneath his feet still ruthlessly, devouring the lives of the citizens, feeling Bai Yu still stirring within him, trying to regain control. In that instant, he understood the only way to break the deadlock. He kowtowed to me once more. Great One, this array was originally meant to protect the city, but it has now become the root of an evil art tormenting the people. As long as a sliver of Bai Yu and I remain, this array cannot be truly destroyed, and the sword sect will only stray further down the wrong path. Jian Huaishuang's gaze swept across the chaotic square, over the terrified citizens, over the catatonic Su Ziyuan, and finally settled on me. Your kindness, Great One, I Huaishuang, shall engrave in my heart. I will repay you in the next life even as a blade of grass. But the sword sect did raise me and teach me my arts. The sect committed this grave error, and I cannot escape the blame. With that, he grabbed the great sword from the ground and held the blade across his own throat. I offer my life to help you destroy this array. But in the next second, though a flash of sword light flickered, no blood splattered. Then, a powerful force struck his wrist. The great sword flew from his hand. I sighed softly. I told you last time that I hoped you wouldn't regret your decisions. It seems you didn't listen. Jian Huaishuang's heart tightened, followed by a wave of profound confusion. Repaying debt with blood, repaying kindness with life. Is there something wrong with that? He didn't feel he would regret it. He did not fear death. After all, this was the only way to break the situation. I looked at his bewildered eyes and smiled slightly. You are strong to suppress an evil ghost with mere mortal will. But don't be so impulsive next time. I never said I didn't have a way. If you want to atone, then stay alive. Death only ends everything, changes nothing. Then I raised my hand. In an instant, thousands of pills whistled out from my sleeve. These pills landed precisely on each node of the array, and exploded instantly, turning into a torrent of pure energy. Immediately, the 4 nodes shattered, and the threads draining the citizens snapped and vanished. The pallor on their faces quickly faded. Their vacant eyes regained focus. Though still weak and terrified, their lives were now out of danger. This reversal happened in the blink of an eye. I walked to the stunned Jian Huaishuang and flicked my finger. 3 soul-sculpting pills shot directly into his mouth. Once swallowed, the pills turned into a cool, warm current, surging straight into Jian Huaishuang's consciousness. The tearing pain quickly subsided. His unstable soul was enveloped by a gentle, yet resilient power stabilizing it. Jian Huaishuang took a deep breath, feeling a long-lost clarity and peace in his mind. How much longer can you suppress that thing inside you? Jian Huaishuang sensed it carefully, the tug-of-war between his soul and the White Jade's will, a look of shame crossing his face. Huaishuang couldn't put it into words. Though weakened by the backlash, his foundation remained, and it continued to strike back. 1 month. Will that work? Hearing this, Jian Huaishuang nodded heavily. I smiled faintly. Then it's simple. Remember this. If there's something mortals cannot achieve, try seeking help from a god. With that, I flipped my hand and produced the Zhenjiang Shrine papercut, sensing the aura of its origin. The formation began to operate violently once more. Soon, a phantom of a paper-crafted Zhenjiang Shrine slowly coalesced above the square. Then, guided by the formation, The paper cut merged rapidly into Jian Huaishuang's mind. He immediately withdrew his own will, guiding the residual power of the White Jade to touch the external formation. Guided by the soul stabilized by the 3 pills, the 2 energies were forcibly fused together. As the last glimmer of the formation faded, the paper cut completely turned to ash. Jian Huaishuang snapped his eyes open. Now clad in paper armor, a jade-colored glow flashed in his eyes. He had successfully merged with the general of Zhenjiang. Then, the souls and flesh energy absorbed by the White Jade were actually expelled, transforming into expressionless paper figures that drifted lightly to the ground. Having lost its energy source and target, the great formation emitted a low hum, finally falling completely silent. I looked at Jian Huaishuang, whose aura had completely changed, and the eerie paper figures on the ground. It seems things are stable for now. Stay by my side for this month, and get used to your new body. As for whether to purge your own ranks, that is for you to decide. Upon hearing this, the pale paper faces all froze. Jian Huaishuang, however, nodded heavily. Then I vanished with the plague rat. Not long after, a slight commotion came from the city gates. The figures of Shirtu and Hongling appeared. Following behind them was their transport, Niechaoshi. Wang Er recognized Shirtu and Hongling instantly, so emotional he almost burst into tears, rushing forward to kowtow in gratitude. Immortal Master, it really is you. Thank you for saving my life. Following Hongling's speech, the people of Bai Yu City expressed their willingness to follow the god to a new sanctuary. The relocation was organized methodically. The massive bone snake and Niechaoshi carried the people in batches, heading toward the forest of the dead. Hongling's efficiency was incredibly high. After gathering all the commoners willing to leave, she and Shirtu quickly seized control of the remaining leadership of the city lord's manor, bringing them before me for judgment. My gaze swept over them. Each was more or less entwined with the bloody scent of karma. Thus, I summoned ghost fire to directly dismantle those with the heaviest karma and the most cruel deeds, turning them into materials for the warehouse on the spot. As for the rest, I broke their spirits completely. Though your crimes do not warrant death, I cannot forgive you on behalf of the souls you persecuted. So you shall be sent to forced labor. I then handed the matter over to Shirtu. Shirtu solemnly accepted the task. Soon, these former nobles and eerie paper figures were thrown together into the depths of the wailing mines, beginning their life of drudgery. Once this was handled, I began arranging the division of labor for the newcomers. The immortal testing stone was brought out once more, including the citizens of Ziyu and surrounding refugees. There were over 30,000. At that moment, Zhang Tsuegu stood in the crowded throng, nervously rubbing her calloused hands. She had spent her whole life working the fields, never imagining she would leave her hometown. The Ziyu city she lived in for a lifetime became a nightmare on the celebration day. The territory of an unknown god seemed equally eerie. Zhang Tsuegu was consumed by fear. Trembling, she pressed her hand onto the cold testing stone. A faint layer of light shimmered on the stone's surface, a green glow brimming with vitality. Aptitude: yellow grade wood spiritual root. Special physique: bountiful harvest. Managed farmland yield increased by 40%. Inheritor of Leizu's legacy. Blessed with a sliver of grace from the ancient silkworm god. Possesses extraordinary affinity and control over everything related to weaving, nurturing, and growth. Within her jurisdiction, the growth speed of all crops is increased by 100%, and yield is increased by 100%, with a tiny chance of triggering beneficial mutations in spiritual plants. Then, a majestic male voice echoed through the area. Zhang Tsuegu. Terrified, Zhang Tsuegu quickly knelt down. I am here, my lord. She had no idea what was happening. The immortal testing stone hadn't reacted much to the others, but she was different. From this day forward, you are in charge of the spiritual fields. Coordinate with those black snakes for irrigation and tilling. Zhang Tsuegu was stunned. She shook her head vigorously. I can't, my lord. I am but a simple farmer. How could I be worthy of managing the spiritual fields? She looked at the small black snakes obediently tilling the soil in the distance, and her legs turned to jelly. Those are real-life monsters. How could she dare go there? Faint whispers broke out among the crowd. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Those spiritual fields are clearly no ordinary land. They must be a divine treasure. Why would the Lord entrust such a heavy responsibility to a common peasant woman? But a few neighbors who knew her well claimed her farming skills were indeed exceptional, with yields far exceeding anyone else's. At that moment, Hongling walked up to her and gently helped her up. Zhang Tsuegu, managing the spiritual fields doesn't require literacy, but your experience with the land and crops. Those black snakes are the Lord's servants. They will follow your orders. Do not underestimate yourself. Trust that the Lord's judgment is never wrong. Zhang Tsuegu looked up, trembling. Hong Ling took out a few pills and pressed them into her hand. As the pills entered her system, it was like rain after a long drought. A warm current instantly dispelled the cold and fatigue from her body. Her rough skin became firm and glowing. Her gray hair turned deep black before their very eyes. A flash of white light appeared above her head. The crowd watched in utter shock. Is this the divine power of a god? To actually make someone youthful again, this is simply a miracle. Hong Ling patted her on the shoulder. Since you bear the responsibility, you must have the corresponding power. This is the god's recognition and blessing, a talent many would kill for. Zhang Tsuegu instinctively straightened her back. An unprecedented sense of courage and responsibility surged within her. Zhang Tsuegu bowed forward. Thank you for your grace, my lord. I will do everything in my power to manage the spiritual fields for you, and I will not fail your trust. The other citizens were filled with envy. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Who wouldn't want to be favored by a god? This wasn't an isolated case. Among the 30,000 new followers, many possessed special traits. Stone Breaker, rare or yield increased by 1% during mining. Shinong's Touch, healing and curing effects increased by 100%. Divine Craftsmanship, construction and repair speed increased by 100%. Durability increased by 50%, with a chance to unlock special architectural blueprints. Under my will, the veterans guided the newcomers, and the entire territory began to operate with rapid efficiency. Those with special traits had their cultivation boosted to the limit with pills. Even the least talented were pushed to level 2. As for the previous 100-plus villagers, I selected many of the hardworking ones, such as Widow Li, the dark-faced man, the leader of Sherdang village, and dozens of others, and rewarded them accordingly. This ignited a fire of ambition in the new followers. It seemed that skill wasn't the only way to be valued. Loyalty and hard work could also earn blessings. As long as they worked honestly and diligently, they too would one day receive divine pills and become cultivators. Meanwhile, following my arrangements, Hong Ling quickly organized and grouped the tens of thousands of new arrivals. The mountain of low-grade materials in the warehouse finally found a purpose. At the locations I designated, the flesh furnace and the soul kiln, both structures began construction. Each building could accommodate 1,000 workers. Daily operation required a massive amount of grade 1 or even grade 2 wood as fuel to compress and purify ordinary flesh and souls into grade 1 or grade 2 materials. The output of existing lumberyards immediately became strained. I immediately constructed 4 in-wind lumberyards on the edge of the territory. More labor was poured in. 2 more mine shafts were added. The total population required for all buildings came to exactly 10,000. As for how to arrange the remaining population, I watched the whaling mines operating day and night. The extracted stone piled up in the warehouse. A thought became clear in my mind. Build a city. I immediately opened the urban planning module from the build list. Using the location of the bone altar and blood prison pool as the central origin point, I began to sketch the blueprint of the city. The core area, centered around the bone altar, the blood prison pool, and the command stage, was designated as an absolute forbidden zone and the center of faith. Other areas expanded outward, including various buildings for the production zone, housing for the residential area, and so on. I handed down the urban planning blueprint and the initial construction tasks. My gaze swept over the core managers I had summoned, finally landing on Lu Cheng, a man of supernatural craftsmanship. I immediately commanded a skeleton to approach him. Lu Cheng hurriedly bowed. My lord god, the planning and construction of the city will be coordinated under your leadership. For the manpower and materials required, you may request them from Hong Ling. Lu Cheng looked up abruptly. Leading the city's construction? This burden is too heavy. He opened his mouth to decline, but meeting my calm gaze and feeling the trusting looks of the city's residents, a craftsman's passion suddenly surged in his chest. He took a deep breath, suppressing all his fear. This old man, Lu Cheng, accepts your command. I shall do everything in my power, giving my very life to the cause. Hong Ling stepped forward at the right moment. My lord, what shall our city be named? After a brief pause, I pointed to the land rising beneath my feet. This city shall be called the City of the Unjustly Dead. A few days later, on a rugged mountain path, a group of figures walked in silence. Jian Huaishuang, dressed in paper robes, still carried his signature giant sword. His face was paler than ever, with a faint, barely perceptible jade light flickering in his pupils. Following behind him were dozens of expressionless paper figures. They retained the silhouettes of the Sword Sect disciples, even wearing paper swords at their waists. This was the final legacy of the Sword Sect, and the shackles Jian Huaishuang had to bear. The disciples had been deeply corrupted by Bai Yu's ghostly aura. Only through the power of evil entities could their paper bodies be reshaped. He had wiped out the entire sword sect. This was not revenge, but because the people of the sect, like him, needed atonement. As Jian Huaishuang passed the edge of the forest of the dead, the view suddenly opened up. Though the surroundings remained eerie and strange, it was already bustling with noise, a scene of feverish construction. Jian Huaishuang watched this in silence, ordering the paper disciples to take all the resources from the sect. To find Hong Ling, Jian Huaishuang went straight to the heart of the territory. He knelt on one knee. "My lord, the matter of the sword sect is settled. The remaining resources and disciples have all been brought back." I emerged from the ghost domain, pointing to the immortal testing stone beside the blood prison pool. "Rise. Go and touch it." Jian Huaishuang rose as told, pressing his palm, which contained a complex and mysterious power, onto the stone. Then a panel filled with text popped up. I looked at the words, my gaze fixing on Warstar and Perfect Vessel. I suddenly understood. No wonder Bai Yu chose him. Such a destiny is indeed the perfect vessel for entities like the Zhenjiang Shrine. Pity he took the wrong path. As for the eerie fusion trait, I wasn't too worried. Once the offering cooldown is over, I'll just throw him onto the altar and sacrifice him. I then looked at the reserved Jian Huaishuang. Now that Bai Yu City has fallen, Bai Yu is dead, and the protection is gone. The remaining demons in Sudao County must be watching hungrily, coveting the villages that have lost their protector. You, along with Shirtu, shall lead a troop to bring all remaining inhabited villages under our control. Jian Huaishuang immediately accepted the order. He then found Shirtu, and after relaying my new instructions, he went to settle the paper disciples he brought from the sect. Meanwhile, Shirtu was beaming, his eyes shining, not only because of his kind heart, unable to bear seeing his kind slaughtered by demons, but more so because this was a mission bestowed by the Lord, thinking about being like a divine envoy from the stories, carrying out divine decrees to purge evil. My heart was filled with an indescribable excitement. Hong Ling witnessed it all, and slapped him right on the back of the head. Shirtu clutched his head, looking at her aggrievedly. "Ouch! Why did you hit me?" Hong Ling crossed her arms. Looking at him as if he were an idiot, she asked, "What are you grinning like a fool for? Let me ask you, what do you think of Jian Huaishuang?" Shirtu rubbed the back of his head, confused, but he answered honestly, "Brother Huaishuang is a great guy, powerful, strong-willed, loyal. Didn't he give you some guidance back in Sherdeng village? Now he has the master's favor. He'll definitely be a top combatant under the master, a vital companion for us." He counted on his fingers, using every compliment he could think of. Hong Ling punched him in the head again. "You're hopeless. Don't you have any sense of urgency?" Shirtu was bewildered. Sense of urgency? Hong Ling lowered her voice, her tone laced with frustration at his stupidity. "Use your brain and think. Jian Huaishuang, his willpower, his talent and strength. Which one of those isn't top tier? Most importantly, haven't you noticed the master pays him too much attention? Personally stabilizing his condition, granting him power, and now such a crucial expansion. Mission has been assigned for him to lead." Hong Ling leaned into Shitu's ear. "You wouldn't want him to replace your position in the master's heart, would you?" The smile on Shitu's face froze.
Hong Ling snorted coldly.
"This mission, I'm coming along too." Shirtu hesitated. "Then what about the territory? There's so much to do." Hong Ling waved her hand, a cunning smile playing on her lips. "The construction and management of Wangxi City are mostly on track. All the rules have been established. It's fine if I leave for a while. Moreover, with the master personally presiding here, what could possibly go wrong?" Hearing this, Shirtu immediately went to gather the men to prepare for departure. Meanwhile, after I finished assigning the tasks, I went to the center of the blood prison pool, into the jade pavilion made of blood-fat jade. With a wave of my hand, that pile of jade slips scavenged from the White Jade Sword Sect appeared inside the pavilion. The plague rat had returned to its rat form, furiously gnawing on a roasted duck. "That new pretty boy just got back. He still has a mess of things to sort out. And you're already giving him more work?" I was examining a dark gold jade slip. "He seems quite capable. But Jian Huaishuang is now a malevolent entity, tireless and immune to pain. Why should I feel any guilt about exploiting him?" The plague rat rolled its eyes. "I've realized you're a real monster." I smiled, my gaze returning to the scriptures. "By the way, have you heard of the Golden Buddha?" The plague rat was still grumbling about the pretty boy comment. Hearing the question, it answered instinctively. "Do you mean the Golden Buddha's manifestation mentioned by the White Jade Old Ghost?" "I'm not too sure about that. All I know is there's a Buddhist sect in Yoguang Province." "Yoguang Province? Isn't that right here?" The plague rat was stunned. "Isn't this Tianxi Province?" I shook my head. "This is Dead Man's Forest, Sudao County, Qiandao Prefecture, Yoguang Province." The plague rat's worldview seemed to shatter. "No way. How did you do it? Dragging Lord Rat from Tianxi Province all the way to Yoguang Province? Even a rank 7 wouldn't have the power to cross provinces." right? The plague rat wanted to press further, but saw me suddenly frown. Putting down the fragmented scroll, I looked toward the entrance of the living dead secret realm. 99. Suddenly one is missing. I noticed that among the skeletons grinding for materials in the realm, one had suddenly vanished. I checked the system panel. Current ghost servant count. 99. Just as my mind drifted away from thoughts of the Golden Buddha, another long-ignored notification on the system panel caught my eye. Side quest. Explore the living dead secret realm. I rubbed my temples. The quest progress bar had remained stagnant. Those ruins shrouded in corpse poison were bottomless. Ordinary zombies. Their strength mostly hovered between rank 1 and rank 2. There's no way they could make a rank 3 skeleton even vanished completely without even sending a warning. With that thought, I immediately issued a command, ordering nearby skeletons to converge on the lost coordinates. Simultaneously, I projected my consciousness into the secret realm. 5 of the nearest skeletons quickly arrived at the site of disappearance. It was a dilapidated park shrouded in green corpse toxin. But strangely, zombies were abnormally scarce here. Normally, zombies wouldn't decrease for no reason. I controlled the skeletons to investigate carefully. Soon, I found traces of battle. The ground was splattered with the thick black blood unique to zombies. Several claw marks were clearly visible, and a distinct trail of dragged blood stretching deep into the park. Tracking the blood trail, the skeletons crossed a flower bed left with only soil and withered roots. There, a bizarre creature was crouching on the ground. A few mangled zombie corpses lay scattered around it. My expression instantly turned strange. Isn't this the bone-eating beast that struck terror into hearts in my past life? Bone-eating beasts feed on humans. When they can't find fresh humans, they don't mind filling their bellies with zombies. Many poorly defended human settlements were overrun by these beasts appearing in packs. But the problem is, why would a bone-eating beast appear here? This is just a secret realm obtained from a system gacha. Why would something unique to my past life show up? With a flick of my will, 5 tier 3 skeletons lunged simultaneously. In a single clash, sharp bone claws easily sliced through its scales. I realized immediately, it wasn't this thing. Although this bone-eating beast is a threat, it could never one-shot another skeleton of the same tier. Moreover, it couldn't even send a warning. More skeletons arrived shortly after. Under my command, the skeletons used the park as their center and began a carpet search and clear out. After some effort, another 5 or 6 lurking bone-eating beasts were slain. But other than that, no other more powerful entities were found. This left me completely baffled. What on earth one-shot my skeleton? I then ordered all the eerie servants operating in the secret realm to be doubly vigilant, especially watching for any new anomalies in the park area. Just as I was about to withdraw my consciousness, my gaze caught the task panel. Side quest, exploration of the living dead realm, plus 1%. Seeing this, I couldn't help but wonder, was it because I cleared out these out-of-place bone-eating beasts that the exploration truly began, or was it because killing them triggered a deeper secret of this realm? Regardless, this 1% progress has finally pried open a corner of the gates to this living dead treasure trove. By then, the plague rat had finished the roast duck. It lay on the edge of the jade pavilion, licking its paws with lingering appetite. When the plague rat looked up, it happened to spot the corpses before me, tilted its head. Its tiny crimson eyes were full of disdain. What kind of ugly thing is this? Bone-eating beast. Never seen one? The plague rat shook its head. Never. I, Lord Rat, have traveled for many years, but something that is neither demon nor monster, nor ghost nor specter, I've truly never seen. My heart stirred at those words. Even the plague rat, a monster that has lived over 300 years, had never seen a bone-eating beast. This almost confirmed my previous suspicion. These beasts are likely not native to this world. Over the next few days, while monitoring the skeletons in the secret realm, I pored over the fragmented records brought back from Xiu City. I discovered there was another evil spirit in the dead man's forest. I found an old man to question. He said that, about 500 years ago, a humanoid evil spirit occupied this place. His powers were eerie, and it caused great devastation. Later, the Xiaofeng Mountain Lord, who originally ruled Sudao County, fought a death match against the evil spirit here. In the end, Lord Mountain Lord exhausted his strength and fell, and the evil spirit vanished without a trace. Later on, Bai Yu descended upon this land, seized the Mountain Lord's former territory, and established Xiu City. Only after speaking did the old man realize something was wrong. The evil spirit that occupied the dead man's forest. Isn't that you, my lord? He immediately broke into a cold sweat. His old face wrinkled like a chrysanthemum. Not knowing how to defend himself, I listened in silence. I knew the humanoid evil spirit he spoke of was definitely not me. His ability to manifest a human form was mostly an illusion created by a ghostly domain. His true form was still the bone altar. It seems the dead man's forest holds many secrets. I sighed to myself. For a tiny place like Sudao County to produce 3 evil spirits, I don't know if I should say this place is blessed. a hidden land of crouching tigers and hidden dragons, or if the starter village is just full of final bosses. Sighing over, I glanced at the system panel. The latest system notification read, "You have successfully recruited a human settlement. Received 1 yellow grade lottery ticket. You have gained 254 new followers." I've received many similar notifications these past few days. It seems Jian Huaishuang and Shitu's work in annexing surrounding villages is progressing very smoothly. Then, I used all 5 accumulated yellow grade lottery tickets at once. Most were rare grade 1 or 2 materials, usable for construction. Only one was a grade 5 heavenly treasure. The blood Bodhi vine, watered regularly with blood, can bear Bodhi heart fruits. Consuming them can enhance the user's spiritual root aptitude. The higher the quality of the blood used, the higher the quality of the fruit produced. My eyes lit up. This thing can change a person's cultivation potential. For followers with mediocre aptitude, this is invaluable. Moreover, it provides a continuous yield. With that in mind, I immediately planted the blood Bodhi vine in the thick earth spiritual field. With the dual boost of the spiritual field and Zhang Tsuegu's special physique, its growth should be exceptional. Meanwhile, at Li Jiao village, Jian Huaishuang watched expressionlessly as dripping demon blood stained the earth red. She quietly wiped her blood-stained heavy sword. On the ground lay a massive demon corpse, still twitching slightly. The villagers huddled behind the broken fences, but their faces showed no joy of survival. Instead, they were a mix of fear and disbelief. The demon is dead, but the one who killed it doesn't look quite human. Whispers spread among the villagers. Fear did not vanish with the demon's defeat. Instead, it shifted toward Jian Huaishuang. At that moment, Hong Ling stepped forward, breaking the stagnant atmosphere. "Fellow villagers, we are not from White Jade City." She pointed toward Jian Huaishuang. "This is the patrol envoy of the city of the Wrongfully Dead, serving under the Bone God Sovereign, Lady Jian Huaishuang. The Sovereign pities the suffering of the world, and has ordered us to purge the demons from all directions, to protect the flickering flame of humanity." Hearing this, Jian Huaishuang paused, feeling slightly embarrassed by the title Hong Ling had just made up. But Hong Ling remained unfazed, pausing only briefly, her gaze sweeping over the still bewildered faces of the villagers. "I know you all have doubts, but let me ask, when the wart pig demon lived here and devoured countless people, did White Jade City ever care? Are you not tired of living in constant fear for your lives day and night?" These words struck a chord deep within everyone. Many lowered their heads, their faces filled with sorrow. Hong Ling's voice suddenly rose. "The sovereign's power is boundless, and a new city has been established at the edge of the forest of the dead. Within the city are hundreds of acres of spiritual fields, where everyone shall be fed. Those under the sovereign's command, like the patrol envoy, slay demons." She pointed to Jian Huaishuang, "and the envoy's current form is a divine body granted by the gods, specifically to purge evil and protect humanity. If that weren't the case, how could she so easily slay the ferocious demon that left you all helpless?" The villagers looked at the massive demon corpse on the ground, then back at the imposing and steady presence of Jian Huaishuang. The fear in their hearts was gradually replaced by hope. Then, the eldest elder of the village stepped forward, bowing deeply to Jian Huaishuang and Hong Ling. "Thank you, envoys of the sovereign, for saving our lives. We of Li Jiao are willing to migrate to the new city and seek the sovereign's protection." Just as the villagers of Li Jiao were swayed by Hong Ling and were preparing to pack their belongings for the city of the Wrongfully Dead, a cold shout suddenly echoed from outside the village. "Hold it!" Everyone looked toward the sound, seeing 7 or 8 figures in black robes approaching quickly. Hong Ling looked at the robed figures. "Who are they?" Jian Huaishuang's gaze narrowed. "The Shenshui Guard, and demon-slaying agency directly under Landau City, possessing immense power, responsible for monitoring demon activity across the land, and handling major malevolent incidents. The cold man leading them, named Xing Yu, was the captain of this Shenshui Guard squad." Xing Yu then looked at the villagers. "Do not listen to these slanderous words, nor be deceived by the facade of evil spirits. Those with such grotesque forms cannot possibly be benevolent." As he spoke, a man in black robes took a compass-like magical artifact from his chest. The needle on it spun wildly, emitting a faint spiritual glow. After a careful examination, his expression shifted. He leaned in and whispered urgently into Xing Yu's ear. "Death Qi detected. It shares the same source as the residue from the ruins of White Jade City. Confirmed. These are the target malevolent entities and their accomplices." Xing Yu's heart sank. He quickly ordered his squad to form ranks, while shouting a proclamation to the panicked villagers. We are the Shenshui guards of Landau City. Bai Yu City was destroyed several days ago. City Lord Su Ziyuan is missing. The Bai Yu Sword Sect has sealed its mountains. Not a single soul survived in the inner city ruins. This incident has shaken the prefectural government. Lord Su was personally appointed by the prefect. Now he has fallen victim to evil spirits. We have been ordered to investigate and capture the culprit. As soon as these words were spoken, a wave of turmoil swept through the villagers. The flicker of hope was crushed by overwhelming terror. They looked at the righteous-seeming Shenshui guards, then at Jian Huaishuang, whose form was undeniably inhuman. For a moment, they were lost in confusion. Beside them, Shitu roared in anger. Nonsense! That dog of an official, Su Ziyuan, conspired with the old ghost of Bai Yu, attempting to sacrifice every citizen in the city. It was the great deity who intervened, saving countless lives. You people, before he could finish, Xing Yu had already struck. A concentrated water-blue blade aura slashed straight for Shitu's face. Jian Huaishuang leaped in front of Shitu. He raised an arm clad in paper armor, forcibly blocking the blade aura. At that moment, rage surged within him. Jian Huaishuang found these Shenshui guards utterly hypocritical. When countless villages in Sudao County were ravaged by demons, where were these so-called Shenshui guards? Where were they when Bai Yu prepared the blood sacrifice of the entire city? Yet now that the accomplice Su Ziyuan is dead, simply because he was the prefect's appointed lord, they suddenly appear. Jian Huaishuang could endure suspicion, could bear the strange looks of disdain, but he could not tolerate one thing, that they slandered the deity who saved countless lives, and gave him a new life as an evil spirit. On the other side, Hong Ling and Shitu, seeing the sudden attack, were also consumed by rage. They immediately drew their weapons and joined the fray. Luan fire talismans shot forth, bone sword chi howled through the air. The two sides instantly clashed in a chaotic brawl. Fortunately, both sides remained somewhat restrained, carefully avoiding the unarmed villagers with the shockwaves of their battle. But only Jian Huaishuang was being continuously manipulated by Bai Yu. Look at them, these so-called righteous ones. When have they ever cared for the lives of ants? All they care about is their power and their order. Are you angry? Do you feel hatred? Release me. Let me help you tear these hypocrites to shreds. Just as Xing Yu's fierce wave-breaking slash came crashing down again, Jian Huaishuang's movements suddenly froze. The clarity in his eyes was replaced by an eerie, jade-colored glow. A low, distorted laugh leaked from Jian Huaishuang's throat. Countless tentacles suddenly erupted from the gaps in his paper armor, piercing toward all the surrounding Shenshui guards. Jian Huaishuang looked at Xing Yu with a faint smile. Thank you, Captain Xing. Without your help, this seat would have struggled much more to break free. Before the words had even faded, the tentacles precisely pierced the skulls of the Shenshui guards, frantically draining their brain matter and essence. Seeing this, Shitu's eyes nearly burst with rage. Brother Huaishuang, he tried to rush forward, swinging his bone sword at the tentacles, while screaming, "Wake up! Brother Huaishuang, don't let it control you." Bai Yu let out a cold snort. An ant dares to disturb me? With a casual wave of his hand, he sent a single tentacle, striking straight for the top of Shitu's head. Shitu quickly swung his blade to block with all his might, yet he was still sent flying backward by the impact. Hong Ling, on the other side, fared worse. The tentacles almost ignored the barrier of the fire wall, piercing straight through her shoulder. In the heat of the moment, Hong Ling uttered a sentence, calm and clear. Jian Huaishuang, do not let him control you. If the Lord knew that his first disciple had fallen to become a puppet of a demon, what would he think? These words slashed violently into the depths of Jian Huaishuang's consciousness. Bai Yu's expression shifted. He clearly felt Jian Huaishuang's consciousness instantly boil over because of a single sentence. The muscles on Bai Yu's face twisted, his body trembling violently, and the rampaging tentacles froze in place. Bai Yu let out a roar of absolute agony, the jade light in his eyes flickering wildly. In the sea of consciousness, Jian Huaishuang fought a fierce battle against Bai Yu. First disciple? Fool! You are nothing more than a useful blade in his hand. Once you are no longer useful, your end will be far worse than mine. The moment the words ended, his left eye suddenly regained its clarity. Shut up! I will not allow you to insult the Lord. The left side of his face began to laugh wildly again. You already possess the body of an evil spirit. Why continue to bow and serve another? I am saving you. Stop resisting. Surrender this physical body to me. Once I recover my strength, you shall be my most trusted lieutenant. Veins bulged on the right side of Jian Huaishuang's face. Never. I, Jian Huaishuang, shall serve only the Lord for the rest of my life. One moment. He raised his hand to deliver a fatal blow to the Shenshui guards. Then he would forcibly push his arm back down. His body trembled uncontrollably. The tentacles around him lashed out wildly. The Shenshui guards, temporarily freed, narrowly escaped death. A young guard whispered to Xing Yu, "Boss, what's going on here?" Xing Yu shook his head. Those bewitched by evil spirits are usually erratic and insane. Jian Huaishuang snapped coldly. Shut up. A tentacle slammed down, knocking Xing Yu unconscious instantly. The remaining guards trembled in fear, huddling together for support, not daring to make a sound. Elsewhere, accompanied by a roar of excruciating pain, the jade light in Jian Huaishuang's eyes slowly faded. Bai Yu, get the hell back where you came from. A few moments later, the wildly thrashing tentacles began to wither, retracting back into his body. Jian Huaishuang stumbled and fell to one knee. He looked up as Shitu and Hong Ling rushed toward him, forcing himself to stand. His gaze swept over the fallen guards, then shifted to Shitu and Hong Ling. Take them all back, and let the Lord decide their fate. Hong Ling sighed, looking at Jian Huaishuang's state, then acted in perfect sync with Shitu. They quickly seized all the magical tools and talismans from the guards, binding them with confiscated ropes. Seeing this, the villagers of Lijiao fell silent as graves. Any lingering hesitation vanished completely, replaced by total submission to the journey to the new city. They followed Jian Huaishuang and the others toward the city of the dead. After a while, Jian Huaishuang led the guards to the bone altar. My lord, Huaishuang reports back. He recounted today's events concisely and clearly, reporting everything in detail, without a single omission or excuse. I sat perched upon the bone altar. With a flick of my finger, a dark pill flew toward Jian Huaishuang. This is a third-grade soul-molding pill. It will help stabilize your soul and suppress distracting thoughts. Next, let Hong Ling and Shitu settle the villagers of Lijiao and continue the unfinished tasks. Jian Huaishuang took the pill with both hands, feeling the pure soul power within, but his heart tightened. He keenly sensed the implication in my words, unable to stop himself from looking up. Will the remaining tasks no longer be assigned to Huaishuang? Is it because my loss of control today has disappointed you, my lord? I gave a faint smile. Why would I be disappointed? Though you nearly lost control today, you ultimately suppressed Bai Yu through your own will, captured the guards, and prevented a greater catastrophe. Nor did you fail the villagers who trusted you. You have done very well. Hearing that I wasn't disappointed in him, the tension in Jian Huaishuang's heart finally eased slightly, though a hint of disappointment remained. He bowed respectfully. Huaishuang understands. The evil spirit within you and Bai Yu's remnant soul are not yet stable. Until the conflict between your souls is resolved, it is indeed unwise for you to handle external affairs alone. Stay by my side for the time being. Jian Huaishuang bowed. As you wish, my lord. In truth, I had already planned this. Keeping Jian Huaishuang close made it easier to supervise him personally, preventing the unstable elements within him from spiraling out of control again. Secondly, it allowed me to observe the changes after he merged with the evil spirit's traits. Perhaps I could uncover more secrets regarding the origin of the evil spirits. Of course, letting him rest was out of the question. With the tireless body of an evil spirit, a realm needing stabilization, and new powers to master, how could he possibly be idle?
Exploitation.
I must exploit him ruthlessly. Oh no, let's call it high-intensity adaptive training and ideological education, ensuring he has no free time to overthink or dwell on self-reproach and the shadows of his past. I gave myself a mental pat on the back for my kindness. Then I took the items brought back by Jian Huaishuang and laid out the confiscated magical tools. Most were unremarkable, but 1,000 mechanism lock caught my eye. It seemed to be a low-grade sealing artifact. I picked it up casually. A soft click echoed. The 1,000 mechanism lock snapped open. A few faint beams of light leaked out, falling to the ground, revealing the prisoners within. 3 trembling flower demons, and a nightmare demon curled into a ball. Plague Rat let out an unrestrained sneer. Xing Yu, is this the grand achievement of your Shenshui guards in slaying demons? Slaying little monsters who can't even speak. Hearing this, Xing Yu's face turned pale. He knew that killing such weaklings was hardly a feat of skill, but he still stubbornly argued. A demon is a demon. Weak today does not mean they won't cause havoc tomorrow. Preventing disaster before it strikes is the duty of the Shenshui guards. At this, Plague Rat narrowed his eyes. Preventing disaster before it strikes. Huh? Then what about the great demons of Thousand Islands Prefecture, who claim mountains as their own and slaughter villages? Which one of those did your guards conquer? Xing Yu was left speechless by the blow. He took a deep breath. A look of determination appeared on his face. Kill me or torture me, do as you please. Once I joined the Shenshui guards, I cast aside my life and death. You evil spirits cannot break my spirit. Landau City will reclaim justice for us. The guards behind him also raised their heads, clearly sharing the same resolve. I waved my hand. Why kill such high-quality labor? Send them to forced labor. Let them sit at the same table as City Lord Su's confidants. I'm sure City Lord Su down there, we'll be gratified to have so many acquaintances for company. Plague Rat let out a sinister chuckle. He pointed at the 4 little demons. And what about these useless things? I looked at the flower demons. Send them to Lu Chung. He is the head of city construction. The city of the Wrongfully Dead still has many areas under construction. Send him a few helpers who can assist with the landscaping. Though the flower demons could not speak, they were full of spirit. Realizing they weren't being destroyed, but were instead given protection and a purpose, they were instantly overcome with gratitude. Plague Rat kicked the little pig with his toe. What about this thing? Your kin, isn't it? Send it to Widow Lee as a pet. Isn't she managing the ranch affairs? Once it grows, it might actually be useful.
Plague Rat instantly bristled.
Who shares kinship with this piece of trash? It hasn't even demonized yet. Are all nightmare demons the same? Later, Jian Huishuang personally delivered the flower demons to Lu Chung. The Shenshui guards were escorted deep into the wailing mines. Just then, I heard the system notification. I opened the panel. Current ghost servants. -1. This damn secret realm cost me another ghost servant. I immediately linked with the sensory perception of the servant inside. The location was still marked at that dilapidated park. The park was now swarming with countless black insects. They were frantically devouring everything in sight. The concrete on the ground, the rusted fences, even the hardy mutant plants were not spared. I released my ghost domain. Death energy instantly saturated the entire park. The devouring mutant insects froze for a moment. Then, countless cracking sounds erupted. On the glossy black shells of every insect, ghastly white bone patterns rapidly emerged. Their hard shells became breeding grounds for bone. Sharp, twisted bone spikes burst through the shells without warning. In an instant, the black tide of insects covering the ground vanished. In its place was a forest of white sea urchins made of countless bone spikes. Every single insect was impaled by the bones growing wildly from within. They remained in their final moments of life, eternally frozen in death. This is the power of evil, using death as the brush to reshape the form of life, an assimilation infection. I was satisfied with the bone spike hell I had created. Then I noticed a gap had appeared in the center of the park. The surrounding space was slightly distorted. I picked a random skeleton to scout the way. I controlled it to step through the distorted spatial curtain. After a brief sensation of weightlessness and spatial displacement, the skeleton's vision returned. What met its gaze was an endless, murky yellow. Beneath its feet was scorching sand. Gale winds whipped up clouds of dust. And not far away, a village sat upon this plain. The wells were dry. Most doors and windows of the houses were tightly shut. No sign of poultry or livestock in the fenced yards. Not even a single foraging insect could be seen. The only sign of life came from the people scattered throughout the village. Most of them sat slumped on their doorsteps, or leaned against withered trees, staring blankly at the gloomy, gray sky, their breathing so shallow it was barely perceptible. Until the moment the skeleton stepped through the light curtain, the dead silence shattered like a sheet of ice. Every eye locked onto the figure of the skeleton. The next instant, they surged toward the skeleton from all directions, then fell to their knees in unison. The messenger of the Supreme God, has descended upon Shurken village. Quick! Bring out the last of the offerings. We beg for the messenger's mercy. Grant us the divine remains. My will was attached to the skeleton. From the moment I stepped through the light curtain, I felt something was wrong. Every command I gave the skeleton met with a sluggish response. I could clearly feel that between the skeleton and my true body in the forest of the dead, there was a vast, staggering distance. The bone summoning skill was being rapidly weakened. Soon, my wraith servant couldn't even twitch. Skill failed. I lost control of the skeleton, under the gaze of countless fanatical eyes. After only a few steps, the skeleton collapsed with a loud clatter, turning into a heap of scattered, withered bones. The silence lasted only a heartbeat, followed by an even more frenzied wave. It's the divine remains. A dozen people pounced like starving wolves, fighting until they were bloodied and bruised, all for a few fragments of bone. They tore at each other, cursing and screaming, treating the skeleton like a priceless treasure, and my consciousness was trapped within that skull on the ground, watching this farce unfold. Finally, a particularly burly man kicked a few people aside, and picked me up. With the help of his family, he pushed through the crowd and ducked into a house. The interior was dimly lit. The man placed me on the floor. His family gathered around, their eyes gleaming with hope. The old woman urged him impatiently. Zhao Meng, bury it quickly, just like the finger bone the messenger left last time. Zhao Meng nodded. He found a relatively intact clay pot, ran to the parched courtyard behind the house, and dug a small hole with a stone shard. He solemnly placed me in the pit, then slowly covered me with earth. Once finished, he squatted before the mound and breathed a sigh of relief, his shoulders finally relaxing. Zhao Meng turned and smiled at his family. It's done. It's buried. Now our home has a guardian deity. We can finally sleep in peace tonight. Hearing this, His wife swayed on her feet, her eyes instantly welling up. She grabbed his arm and asked, "Hubby, is this really true? Just like the rumors from Heishui Valley? That burying it brings protection?" Zhao Meng gripped his wife's hand tightly. "Absolutely true. I heard old Wang from Heishui Valley ran into a walking skeleton. He felt pity for it, so he dug a hole and lured the skeleton to lie down and be buried. Since then, no one in Heishui Valley has died for days. The news has spread like wildfire through Kushi County." The old woman pressed her palms together, bowing toward the mound. "Heavens! Thank you for your mercy." Zhao Meng's wife hugged her child. "This is wonderful. Finally, we can sleep in peace tonight." Meanwhile, as I was buried in the soil, everything went black. I lay buried in the earth, and the connection to the skull was completely severed. My consciousness returned to the forest of the dead. The system simultaneously gave a notification. Wraith Servant -1. I was beyond frustrated. After all that effort, not only did I lose a Wraith Servant, but I was forced to experience being torn limb from limb. Fortunately, it wasn't without gain. The progress of the Living Dead Realm exploration side quest ticked up again, increasing by 0.5%. I observed the spatial rift gnawed open by alien insects. After confirming it was temporarily stable, I decided to investigate it personally. My consciousness quietly passed through the rift in the realm, descending once more upon Shirkin Village. It was now the dead of night. Every household had their doors tightly locked. I released my divine sense to probe the surroundings. Suddenly, I captured a trace of malevolent aura before a house. Looking closer, that monstrosity was actually knocking on the door. I quietly released my wraith domain, and deathly energy spread toward the door like a spiderweb. I'll investigate the true nature of that thing. But the moment my death energy was about to touch it, its malevolent aura vanished instantly, disappearing into the thick darkness of the night. I didn't even have time to figure out what on earth it was. Meanwhile, behind the door, Zhao Meng collapsed to the floor. "It's gone. It's really gone." His younger brother, Zhao Yong, also loosened his grip on the wooden club. Both were overwhelmed with emotion, yet desperately lowered their voices, afraid of waking the children. They huddled close together, their tense breathing finally eased, ears straining for any sound outside the door, intending to keep watch like this until dawn. The villagers of Shirkin Village peeked out from their homes. Once they confirmed the night had truly passed, they gathered instinctively by the ancient well. The village chief began his routine head count. When the last person was counted, a collective, suppressed gasp echoed through the crowd. Not a single person was missing. The chief asked the crowd, "Last night, whose door was knocked on?" Zhao Yong instinctively raised his hand. However, to their surprise, and to the shock of all the villagers, one after another, 3 or 4 other households also raised their hands. In those households, some had only found a small finger bone, others only a small fragment of a broken rib. The old chief couldn't help but look at them. "Your doors were knocked on too? What happened then?" Zhao Yong stepped forward. "It knocked 7 or 8 times, and then it went silent." Zhao Yong pointed sharply behind his house, and toward the other households. "It was the wandering gods that descended yesterday. Having them buried in our homes protected us, keeping that soul-stealing monster away." The chief's eyes lit up upon hearing this. "Heaven has eyes. Shirkin Village is saved. Hurry back and set up altars where the divine remains are buried. Offer 3 incense sticks every morning and evening." With that, the chief checked each house that had been visited. I remained hidden to the side, calmly observing everything. I knew exactly what was happening. The thing that knocked last night retreated, likely because of the death energy I left in the bones. The moment it sensed my aura, it fled in terror. It's clear that it acts with extreme caution, but this isn't a permanent solution. The death energy remaining on the skeletons will gradually dissipate over time. After all, they aren't true evil entities, just ghost servants I summoned. On the other side, the villagers were chatting excitedly. The conversation naturally shifted to Wangshua, the neighboring village where things were worse. "I wonder how Wangshua fared last night. They barely have any young men left to keep watch. Didn't their village also have gods descend? They should be fine, right?" The old chief pondered for a moment. "We must send someone to check. We're all neighboring villages in the same county. We can't just watch them die. If it's too dangerous, let's bring them all to our village. At least our gods are proven to be useful." Zhao Yong stepped forward. "Chief, I'll go. I'll take 2 people with me." After receiving the chief's permission, Zhao Yong set off quickly. I followed leisurely behind Zhao Yong, Zhao Meng, and the others. Wangshua wasn't far from Shirkin Village, but the closer we got, the heavier the sense of deathly silence became. As I scanned the village, I was quickly drawn to an exceptionally dilapidated house. And there, in front of that house, stood a woman, The aura she emitted was extremely strange, like the tangled resentments of countless dead, mixed with a sinister demonic energy similar to the plague rats. The two were twisted and fused together. Seeing this, I frowned deeply. This woman must be very powerful, at least on the level of the plague rats. I extended my divine sense to investigate and finally saw her true form. The beautiful woman's face instantly transformed into a beetle skull, its compound eyes flickering with a cold glint. Just then, the woman turned slightly, and toward where I was standing, she performed a polite, standard lady's curtsy. This act immediately put me on high alert. I suppressed the death energy around me, ready to respond to any attack or eerie change at any moment. However, after the woman finished her greeting, she made no further move. While maintaining high vigilance toward the eerie woman, I shifted some of my attention to Zhao Yong. He was currently shouting to the villagers of Wangshuo. "Fellow villagers, were you safe last night? Did the guardian gods show their power?" The crowd stirred. A few elders who seemed to be the leaders looked at each other. One of them, an old man with white hair and beard, stepped forward. "It's the Zhao boy from Shirkin village. There was indeed a knocking sound last night." Two other families quickly spoke up. "My house had 5 knocks. My house had 7 or 8. Everyone is here. Not a single one missing." The villagers of Wangshuo began to whisper among themselves. Someone suddenly remembered something. "What about the ugly hag? Has anyone checked her house?" Hearing this, a few people instinctively turned their heads toward that dilapidated house. The eerie woman's expression remained unchanged, as if she hadn't heard the discussions at all. After a while, a child ran up to the woman. Silly girl, is the ugly grandma okay?" The woman knelt down and held a dried locust to the child's mouth, giving a mechanical smile. The boy devoured the dried locust greedily. The woman reached out and gently patted the child's head. "It's okay. We are all fine." Hearing this, he skipped back to his mother's side, only to be scolded by his mother, who pinched his ear. "You dare eat something given by a fool? Are you asking for a beating?" However, the woman seemed not to notice. She simply pulled a notebook and a piece of charcoal from her collar, and wrote a line of text. From a distance I looked closely. It read, "Observation Record 32. Provide food to a hungry cub, accompanied by a head-patting motion, can effectively terminate crying behavior, judged as a benevolent act, but may incur dissatisfaction from surrounding adult individuals." Seeing this, I frowned. Her behavioral logic doesn't stem from empathy, but from observation, recording, analysis, and then execution. As I was thinking, the woman turned and entered the house. I immediately followed, stopping 3 steps in front of her. The woman seemed to sense something. Turning to lock eyes with me, I asked what was on my mind. "What are you?" The woman flipped open her notebook. It read, "When faced with a question from a strange individual, one should first express politeness." Then she looked up again and forced her lips into a stiff smile. "Hello, my name is C." I frowned. "Why that name?" C scratched her head. "Yeah. Why indeed?" My gaze fell upon her. My divine sense surged forward, attempting to probe her origin. This time, I could more clearly feel those 2 massive auras. Together, they formed this monster named C. Inside her body, there were no soul fluctuations that a normal living being should have, only a consciousness core barely maintaining balance. Then I changed the question. "Are you learning?" C nodded, and then wrote something in the notebook. I saw again. New observation subject, unknown. Possesses a high level of curiosity toward me. Response plan, unknown. Preliminary judgment, high danger level but currently no hostility. This monster is interesting. You can call me the White Bone God Sovereign. C nodded, crossed out the unknown after new observation subject, and wrote the 4 characters White Bone God Sovereign. A thought occurred to me. Suddenly, I reached out and produced a soul-molding pill. "This is for you."
C's body suddenly stiffened.
Her eyes stared intently at the soul-molding pill in my palm. An uncontrollable insect-like chirping erupted from her throat. Saliva began to drool from the corner of her mouth. But at the same time, the program shaped to be human was in a fierce struggle with her monster instincts, engaging in a violent conflict. Finally, she took a deep breath, forcing down the urge to devour. She flipped open the notebook again. Note 15. Accepting gifts from others without reason is impolite behavior. The reason must be asked. She looked up at me. "Why?" Seeing her struggle, I didn't make it hard for her, and placed the soul-molding pill directly into C's hand. C swallowed it impatiently. The soul gradually stabilized. The aura that made C instinctively tremble faded away. Her tense body finally relaxed slightly. The suppressed insect-like chirping in her throat gradually subsided. I didn't answer her question directly. Instead, I asked her back, "What about you? Why did you choose to stay here? With your abilities, no matter where you went, it would be far better than staying in Yellow Sand Hollow." "Staying here," you neither hunt humans for cultivation, nor have you integrated into human life. This doesn't fit your survival logic. It was an extremely sharp question, striking right at the core contradiction of her behavioral patterns. But this time, C's mind didn't freeze. She turned to look at the mud hut where she lived. Then, a single word emerged from the core of her consciousness. Family. Hearing those two words, I became even more intrigued. But you're not human. After I said that, she stalled again. In her understanding, the concept of family is born from blood ties and living together, an emotional bond of high altruism and sacrifice. Thus, it completely contradicted her nature as a monster, whose fundamental principle is survival above all. Looking at her face, which looked like a screen full of system errors, I felt that this powerful monster was actually quite naive. Better stop playing around. Any more and she might actually break. I smiled. Look, you're already doing things that defy your own logic. If I do one occasionally, what's so strange about that? C couldn't refute it. She could only stare at me blankly. I looked at C, gesturing toward the dilapidated mud hut behind her. Is your family inside? C nodded. She turned and walked toward the hut. With a flicker of movement, I followed her in. Entering the mud hut, a thick smell of herbal medicine and decay hit me. The room was dimly lit, with only a tiny oil lamp flickering in the corner. A very old woman was lying on a heated earthen bed. C walked over, skillfully picking up a bowl of cold herbal medicine by the bed. She fed it to the old woman, spoonful by spoonful. The old woman struggled to open her eyes. Ah, C is back. Did you go help the villagers again today? C didn't answer, merely repeating the mechanical motion of feeding the medicine. The old woman seemed used to her silence. Good girl. You remember what mother taught you. To be a good person. You've kept it in your heart. Suddenly, she began to cough violently. C reached out to pat her back. I stood to the side, like a ghost that didn't exist. I could sense that there was no blood relation between the old woman and C. My spectral domain had already spread. From the scattered whispers of the villagers outside, I had already pieced together part of the truth. Many years ago, in the sandy lands outside the village, she had found C. Back then, she had just gained sentience, and half her face still looked like a beetle. The villagers considered her an omen of misfortune. But out of a shared sense of misery and pity, the old woman adopted her despite the village's opposition. She treated her as her second daughter, taught her to speak, taught her to walk. Because of this, the old woman's family was gradually shunned by the villagers. A few months ago, Yellow Sand Hollow encountered the knocking ghost for the first time, and the first house where the door was knocked open was the old woman's home. That night, her husband and son both died gruesome deaths. Only she and C survived, for reasons unknown. Overwhelmed by grief, the old woman fell ill and couldn't get up. Although the villagers didn't openly ostracize her, they all subconsciously believed that the village's disaster started at her house, brought by the misfortune of C. Now, C finished feeding the medicine and pulled a dried locust from her clothes. She carefully broke it apart, stuffing the larger half into the old woman's mouth. Although the old woman wondered how C found grasshoppers every day, she never asked. She simply chewed with effort, her eyes reflecting satisfaction and comfort. Eat it yourself. Mother is old. I can't eat much anymore. C didn't speak. She just put the remaining small piece into her own mouth, chewing expressionlessly. After doing all this, she sat quietly by the bed, motionless. I took the opportunity to step out and investigate. I found no particular clues regarding the knocking ghost. By the time I returned to C's hut, the night had grown deep. The old woman had fallen asleep, while C remained in the same posture as during the day. Outside, a dull knocking sound slowly echoed. The oil lamp's flame flickered violently. The hideous hag lying on the Kong bed began to shudder uncontrollably. Jo suddenly snapped her head up, her eyes staring intently at the door. The next second, Jo bolted upright. Under my slightly surprised gaze, she strode decisively toward the door and ripped open the door bolt. A surge of cold, deathly stillness instantly flooded the room. Outside stood a monstrosity stitched together from various corpses. I watched the scene with great interest. Logically, the aura surrounding Jo was far more terrifying than this knocking ghost. But after a brief moment of paralysis, instead of fleeing, the ghost reacted in an extremely abnormal way. Its body began to tremble slightly. Eerie energy suddenly erupted around it. An inhuman roar blasted from within the knocking ghost. Its stitched arms lengthened and twisted, transforming into two pitch-black claws lunging at Jo. But facing the ferocious attack, Jo simply raised her slender, pale hand. The moment the claws were about to touch her face, she precisely seized the knocking ghost's wrists. The insect-like patterns on the right side of her face flared up. A powerful wave of evil intent surged through her arm, instantly swallowing and dissolving the ghost's malevolent aura. The next second, the knocking ghost's body began to shrink violently. The stitched corpses on its body peeled away. Now, the knocking ghost was finally terrified. It let out a piercing shriek, struggling with all its might to break free, but Jo's pale palm locked it in a death grip. The knocking ghost twisted its body violently, tearing itself away from Jo's grasp. Then, it fled frantically toward the village outskirts without looking back. My voice echoed eerily behind it. Want to leave? It's not that easy. With those words, a bone spike pierced precisely into the ghost's back. Immediately, the knocking ghost's body detonated. Countless fragments of broken corpses flew in all directions, and at the center of the explosion, clusters of resentful souls were revealed, which were then slowly absorbed by the bone spike. I glanced at my storage panel. The knocking ghost lay quietly inside after being absorbed. Then, the ghost fire organizing the storage quickly dismantled it. You have obtained Tier 3 Souls X10. I raised an eyebrow. To think a single ghost could yield so many souls. Tier 3 Heart Nightmare Stage. This strength is quite formidable. Many monsters that dominate an entire county are only at the Tier 2 or 3 level. What surprised me even more was that this thing was aggregated from countless resentful souls. Communication was impossible, yet its actions had clear purpose and rules. Clearly, it was being controlled by someone who possesses such means to refine a ghost of this grade. If the goal is merely to harm ordinary people every night, this effort is far too excessive. Keep in mind, the Tier 3 Bone Servant I control has a core strength comparable to the Tier 5 Essence Devouring stage. The person behind the Tier 3 Knocking Ghost likely isn't at a low rank either. With that kind of power, the flesh and blood of ordinary humans offer limited cultivation gains. And while the knocking ghost was strong enough to massacre a village at will, it only killed one person per night. Couldn't fathom why. But I quickly withdrew my thoughts. My gaze returned to Jo at the door. She stood there silently, staring in the direction the knocking ghost had vanished. In those heterochromatic eyes, there was still an unresolvable confusion. This night had brought her far too many data conflicts. I didn't say anything more. With a flash of my figure, I vanished from the room, traveling back to the secret realm. Returning to the city of the Wrongfully Dead, I immediately ordered Jian Huaishuang to appear and had him enter the secret realm with me. After bringing him back to Shirquan village, I looked at Jian Huaishuang. This place is teeming with ghosts. You may exorcise the demons here on my behalf. The key is that their quality is very high. You understand what I mean, right? Jian Huaishuang immediately accepted the order. I leisurely watched Jian Huaishuang's receding figure. I did the math. Just one knocking ghost could yield 1,000 Tier 2 souls, which could instantly max out the sacrifice progress. The blood prison pool produces blood. The secret realm's zombies produce flesh, but there are no good ways to produce souls. They are currently the rarest material. I only hope heaven blesses me with a few more knocking ghosts in Kushi County so I can make a massive profit. I have already decided to turn the entirety of Kushi County upside down. But before that, I'll go back to sacrifice and upgrade. Then, I return to the heart of the city of the Wrongfully Dead, before the evil god's altar built from piles of bones. After maxing out all the required upgrade bars, I clicked sacrifice. In an instant, the entire city of the Wrongly Dead shook with terror. A shimmering light erupted from the bone altar. The bone patterns on the altar's surface lit up one by one, forming a massive and complex sinister array. A terrifying aura, hundreds of times stronger than before, exploded violently from my body. The system panel shifted accordingly. Current level, anomaly grade, body of the evil god, initial formation complete. Evil God Faith Panel awakened. Acquired 1,000 Evil God points. New abilities awakened. Bone Avatar. Bone Erosion. Building shop list updated. Continue your journey to become a great evil god. Upgrade complete. Feeling the majestic power within me, far surpassing anything before, I felt no great joy. Instead, I was utterly stunned. Anomaly grade requires 10,000 Tier 3 materials. That's a billion units in terms of ordinary beings. Once again, I sighed at the grueling nature of the path to godhood. If not for the chance encounter with a high-quality resource like the door-knocking ghost, relying solely on the inferior souls of zombies in the secret realms, I don't know how many lifetimes it would take to save enough. Composing myself, I began to carefully examine my newly acquired abilities. Bone Avatar condenses an avatar slightly weaker than the original body. An extension and manifestation of bone power. Bone Erosion can turn a sliver of death energy into a bone seed, implanting it into the mind of a sentient being to induce mental pollution and spiritual corruption. Both skills are quite powerful. They fill my gaps to a certain extent. The bone avatar finally gives me powerful means to strike first. I no longer have to rely entirely on ghost servants or people like Shirtu and agents like Jian Huaishuang. Bone Erosion increases my magical ATT on the mental plane. Now we're talking. How can one be an evil god if they can't manipulate hearts? I am very satisfied. Then, I opened the newly awakened Evil God Faith panel. Casual believers, 321. Each provides 1 evil god point per day. Most are villagers I saved or those who have heard of my miracles. They are grateful, but their faith is not steadfast. Could fade at any time due to time or other factors. Shallow believers, 58. Provide 5 evil god points. Their faith is slightly deeper. They offer simple prayers, but do not yet see the bone god as their sole salvation. True believers. 7. Provide 20 evil god points, represented by the core villagers of Daliang village. Their faith is relatively firm. They are willing to do much for their god. Devout believers. 2. Provide 100 evil god points. Shitu and Hongling. They see me as their only reliance in the darkness. Their faith is devout. Fanatic believer. 1. Provides 500 evil god points. Jian Huaishuang. He has completely fused his convictions with his loyalty to me, willing to sacrifice everything for the god's will. After reading this, I fell into thought. It seems expanding faith would be a long process that required careful management. Next, I checked the building panel. Many new buildings were unlocked after the upgrade. Bone Forge consumes materials and evil god points to forge standard weapons or strengthen the bones of bone servants. Wraith Sentry Tower, placed at the edges of the eerie domain. It warns and attacks invading spiritual enemies. Soul-sucking well, slowly absorbs stray soul energy from the environment, slightly increasing soul reserves daily. All are yellow-grade buildings. The materials required aren't many. Even if they aren't very useful, I built one of each. They look good as ornaments in my territory. Among them, I built a ring of Wraith Sentry Towers around the entire city of the Wrongfully Dead. In the building list, there is one most eye-catching special building, Flesh Ranch. Special skill, flesh breeding, can breed and cultivate special flesh creatures for sacrifice. Investing evil god points accelerates breeding and mutation, producing higher quality flesh materials. The flesh produced contains a faint aura of the evil god, making sacrifice efficiency slightly higher than regular flesh. My eyes lit up. Now this is something good. This is equivalent to a sustainable flesh production base. Although it requires evil god points, in the long run, it will greatly alleviate the pressure for flesh materials. Now, as my rank increases, the output of a single secret realm is becoming insufficient. Finally, I looked at the shop. The new items are dazzling. Most require evil god points to purchase. Low-grade Faith Talisman slightly increases a target's inclination toward faith in oneself. Disposable Boundary-breaking Spike can briefly open a passage through weak barriers. Enhanced Seed of Hatred, more powerful than the self-bone seed condensed by oneself. With superior stealth. Eerie Domain Expansion Voucher increases the domain's range by 10% upon use. I did some calculations. My followers provide 1,451 evil god points daily. It seems like a lot, but compared to the thousands or tens of thousands spent on the shop and buildings, and potential future needs, is still far from enough. Just as I was sighing to myself, I sensed a commotion coming from the Wailing Mine. I was puzzled. I just dealt with the door-knocking ghost, and it's already late at night. Why are so many villagers still awake? Are they not working tomorrow? Whose loss is this? It's a huge loss for me. Inside the Wailing Mine at this moment, Xing Yu felt his last few days had been absolute hell. Ever since he was thrown into this damned mine, his world had shrunk to just two things: swinging the pickaxe and enduring endless surveillance. Now, like a common laborer, he repeated the digging motion without a moment's rest, though his body felt no fatigue. But what truly pushed him to the brink of collapse was that constant, omnipresent gaze. The ones watching them weren't living beings, but some grotesque paper effigies. These paper figures claimed to be disciples of the Sword Sect. They were silently stationed throughout the mine. No matter what you were doing, the moment you looked up, you'd always see a pair of crudely drawn eyes. Just a moment ago, he was working hard to mine a piece of hard ore. Sweat trickled down his forehead, stinging his eyes. He irritably wiped his face with his sleeve. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse, and his heart skipped a beat. A paper figure had drifted behind him unnoticed. Xing Yu shuddered. He whipped around, only to see a paper figure tilting its head, watching him. A warning to you, don't even think about slacking off. Senior brother ordered us to keep a close eye on you. Xing Yu trembled in fear. I can't take this anymore. Even a dog couldn't stand this hellhole. A dog wouldn't last a day here. I must escape tonight. Late into the night, when everyone was exhausted, a sudden commotion broke out outside the mine. Clusters of eerie green ghost fires drifted in, illuminating the entire tunnel. Then, several villagers in uniform walked in, ordering them to haul all the ore out. It seemed something big was happening in the city. To impress the overseer, everyone scrambled to help. The scene became utter chaos. Xing Yu's heart began to pound violently. Now is the time. He blended in with the crowd carrying materials, keeping his head low, trying his best to look just like those sycophantic prisoners eager to please. He followed the flow of people, stepping out of that suffocating mine for the first time. His eyes were locked on the darkness in the distance, the edge of the city walls. He shoved the materials on his shoulder onto another prisoner. Taking advantage of the turmoil, he dove into the nearby shadows. Just as he was about to slip away, a piercing scream rang out. Stop right there, you in the black clothes. Stop right now. Xing Yu's heart sank. He looked back, only to see a fat overseer pointing in his direction, screaming with spittle flying. Panicking, he stopped caring about direction, and bolted. All his magical tools and talismans had been confiscated, and the night was too dark. He could only scramble through the strange city like a headless fly. There's a prison break. With that shout from Zhang Fugui, the entire construction site erupted in chaos. Everyone dropped their work, shouting loudly to snitch to the authorities of the city of the wrongfully dead. Hurry and notify Lord Hong Ling. He ran that way. Quick! Chase him. Hearing the noise getting closer and closer, Xing Yu was consumed by anxiety. In his desperation, he plunged headlong into a field. A faint snap sounded beneath his feet. He seemed to have stepped on something, breaking it, before he could react. In the surrounding darkness, pairs of blood-red eyes suddenly snapped open. Several black snakes lunged out like lightning, heads held high, hissing angrily, their tongues flickering at him. Who is it? Someone stepped on my brothers. Little 3, go get the big boss. A clever-looking little black snake zoomed away, vanishing at the end of the ridge. Xing Yu didn't expect farming snake demons to be so dutiful. He tried to run, but the little black snakes had already coiled around him. They didn't bite him, but used their supple bodies to bind his ankles tight, leaving him unable to move an inch. Just then, Zhang Tsuegu's furious shouting echoed from afar. Which godforsaken bastard dares touch my precious babies? I'll skin this brat alive. Before she finished speaking, she spotted Xing Yu bound by the snakes and the crushed spirit plants beneath his feet. She flew into a rage. You scum! How dare you step on the Lord's spirit fields? You look like a decent man, yet you do such vile, thieving deeds. Do you have any idea these fields are treasures bestowed by the Divine Lord? Xing Yu let out a cold shout. Unable to break free from the constraints on his legs, he struck a palm toward Zhang Tsuegu's chest. Get out of my way! Facing this decisive strike, Zhang Tsuegu didn't even bother to dodge. She countered with a punch of her own. The collision produced a dull thud. Xing Yu was sent flying backward, spewing a mouthful of blood. Lying on the ground, his face was a mask of disbelief. Peak second stage, just one step away from the third stage heart demon period. A mere farming peasant woman actually possesses peak second stage cultivation? How is this possible? Zhang Tsuegu dusted off her hands. With such mediocre skills, you dare cause trouble in the city of the dead? Someone come here. Wait, no. Snakes, come here. Bind this little thief tight for me, and bring him to the Lord for judgment. Upon receiving the order, the black snakes quickly bound Xing Yu. Hearing the commotion, the villagers gathered around, and together they escorted him before me. Zhang Tsuegu knelt before me, weeping piteously. My lord, please, seek justice for us. This villain right here not only tried to escape from the mines, but he also crushed one of your spirit plants. Those are your treasures. I tend to them with utmost care every day, without a single moment of neglect. My gaze fell upon Xing Yu. Why did you do this? Xing Yu closed his eyes. Kill me or torture me. Do as you please. Don't ever expect Xing Yu, to bow before a monstrosity like you. I took a step forward, looking down at him from above. Who gave you such audacity? Xing Yu snapped his eyes open, fire burning in his crimson eyes. This place is the lair of an evil spirit that kills innocents. As a member of the Xianshui Guard, it is my divine duty to slay demons and exorcise evil. My only regret is my insufficient cultivation, that I cannot strike this demon down with my blade. I shrugged, glancing at the indignant citizens surrounding us. You claim I kill innocents? Then open your eyes and look. When have I ever taken a single life in this place? Xing Yu was momentarily speechless. I saved Daling and Sherdeng villages from the maws of snake demons. They revere me as a god. I took in the refugees from White Jade City, giving them a place to call home. I slaughtered the demons of Tsudao County, restoring peace to this land. I paused. Even you, the so-called Xianshui guards, I only made you work the mines to atone for your sins, without taking your lives. My words resonated with power. The gaze of the citizens toward Xing Yu shifted from anger to contempt and hatred. Xing Yu's face flushed red. Nonsense, you evil spirit. You use honeyed words to deceive. If not for your demonic arts clouding their minds, would they willingly risk their lives for you? Do you dare claim you've never harmed anyone? What about the fall of White Jade City? Can you say it had nothing to do with you? I shook my head. The tragedy of White Jade City was the doing of Bai Yu. He has since been absorbed by Jian Huaishuang. I shall bear the karmic debt for him. But as for the original residents of White Jade City, they are all living well within the city of the dead. These words left Xing Yu speechless once again. His lips trembled. You must have used evil arts to warp their minds, using illusions to deceive them, forcing them to treat a thief as their father, inverting black and white. Hearing this, the smile on my face grew even stranger. You're right. I do indeed possess such a power. Want to try it? As I spoke, A ghostly light flashed in my eyes. A bone seed sank into Xing Yu's forehead. Xing Yu felt a slight chill between his brows, and then nothing at all. He looked at me warily, wondering what trick I had played. But in the next second, a voice suddenly echoed in his mind. The escape failed. I'm dead. No one is coming to save me. The city lord has likely abandoned us. The glory of the Shenshui Guard is nothing but a joke. These voices frantically gnawed at his will. Xing Yu's gaze began to blur. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. That's not how it is. My voice whispered in his ear. Tell me your true purpose. Why are you so desperate to escape? What is the real reason? Confess, and you shall live. Xing Yu's tense body suddenly slumped. His eyes lost all focus. I must escape back to Landau City. Reporting to the city lord. White Jade City was merely a stopover. Our mission is to investigate a strange poison appearing in several counties. The victims die miserably, their bodies stiffening, their skin turning a bronze hue, like bronze statues in a temple. We tracked it for months, and all clues point to the sinister rumors of the dead man's forest. As he spoke the final words, Xing Yu completely lost consciousness. The moment he collapsed, the ghost fire stepped forward silently, dragging him into the secret realm's cage. I gazed at the clues he left before fainting, death energy swirling around my fingertips. Bronze-colored, stiff corpses. A strange poison spanning multiple counties. Clues pointing straight to the dead man's forest. The mastermind behind this is more troublesome than White Jade and the door-knocking ghost combined. The lights of the city of the dead remained bright. In the spirit fields, Zhang Tsuegu was directing black snakes to repair the trampled spirit plants. The blood Bodhi vines shimmered, swaying in the night breeze. Inside the Wailing Caves, the paper people were mining in an orderly fashion. The sounds of Su Ziyuan and others working mingled with the clashing of oars. Outside the city, Shirtu and Hongling led followers to purge the remaining demons. Jian Huaishuang's paper armor gleamed coldly under the moonlight. Villages along the way surrendered one after another, and the power of faith flowed incessantly into the evil god panel. The plague rat ran over, carrying a piece of golden garlic braised snake. This strange poison sounds like a pain. Want Lord Rat to go investigate? I shook my head with a light laugh. A bone avatar had already materialized behind me. No need. A perfect chance to test my new ability. With a flick of my finger, bone seeds flew into the foreheads of several followers, who had awakened scouting talents. Spread across the city, and search for traces of the strange poison. Anyone or anything suspicious you encounter, report it immediately. The spatial rift of the living dead secret realm continued to expand. The door-knocking ghosts of Shiken Village had been wiped out by Jian Huaishuang. Soul materials filled the warehouses, yet they were still short of the amount needed to break through to the next level. And deep within Kushi County, strange movements came from the yellow sand den guarded by the corpses. The source of the door-knocking ghosts seemed to have a secret link to the strange poison. I stood atop the bone altar, my eerie domain unfolding to shroud the entire city of the dead. The prayers of the believers transformed into a colossal power. The prophecy of the Golden Buddha's descent. The bone erosion beasts from across the province. And now, the mystery of the strange poison. The secrets of this world were being unveiled layer by layer. I commanded in a deep voice, spread the word. In 3 days, we march on Landau City. Since the clue was delivered to my doorstep, I shall tear down this nest of poison on my way, and bring the entire Thousand Islands prefecture into the dominion of the city of the dead. The altar's glow surged violently, and the new sacrifice progress began to tick upward. The path of expansion for the evil god had only just entered a more perilous chapter.